I'm ready.
Yes. Okay, very good. Call the special joint city. It's called the Special Joint City Council American Canyon Fire Protection District Board meeting to order for May 21st, 2024. Okay. Okay, so at this time, we'll take open session special meeting, public comment. Any public comment?
We need to do roll call.
Oh, it's not listed on our orders here, so.
I'm sorry. That's my fault.
We need to do roll call.
My fault.
No problem.
Let me do a roll call here. Councilmember Miriam Abadamas is excused. And Councilmember Mark Joseph.
Here.
Councilmember Pierre Washington.
Here.
Vice Mayor David Oro.
Here.
Mayor Leon Garcia.
Here. Thank you. I guess we do the pledge with the other
Yes.
general session. Okay. All right. Good. Okay, now we'll take public comment. Any public comment received?
I have no public comments received, and there is no one online.
Okay, very good. We'll close public comment at this time and move on to fire district business. There are no fire district business items at this time. City business, review appointment of David Garcia Arreola to the Park and Community Services Commission.
Thank you, Mayor. In front of you is a memorandum summarizing this item, and I'm just going to kind of go through that briefly. In the fall of 2022, the council began a process to appoint for upcoming vacancies to a variety of its citizens advisory commissions, including the Parks and Community Services Commission. That process was guided by an ad hoc council subcommittee consisting of Councilmembers Oro and Washington. There was a sequential recruitment for those appointments, starting first with the Planning Commission, then the Parks and Community Services Commission, and then the Open Space Advisory, Active Transportation, and Sustainability Commissions. Prior to the October 18th deadline, the city received 17 applications for the Planning Commission. On October 21st, the city received an application for the Planning Commission from Commissioner David Garcia Arreola. Commissioner David Garcia Arreola was not considered part of the Planning Commission process because of the late application and the filing deadline, but was included in the upcoming Parks and Community Services process. There were 10 other applications the city received for Parks and Community Services. Again, there were 2 vacancies, and so David Garcia Arreola was one of the 11 candidates put forward for PCS. Each of those 11 candidates were paper screened by the council. The council was asked to identify 3 choices that would be brought forward for a public interview process. They weren't ranked at that point. It was just give us your top 3 to be interviewed. And any candidate who received more than 1 vote was invited to be part of a subsequent interview process. David Garcia Arreola received 2 votes and moved forward to that interview process along with 4 other candidates. Interviews were conducted on January 30th. That included David Garcia Arreola. One of the candidates had dropped out, so you all actually interviewed just 4 people that evening. Each council member took turns asking the same questions of all 4 of the candidates. Each council member then voted twice because there were 2 vacancies, and then those votes were turned in to the city clerk. The votes were pretty evenly split. No one candidate received a majority of the votes. Of the 10 votes received, David Garcia Arreola received 4, Charlie Plummer received 3, Joey Palma received 2, and Arvin Nischel received 1. Later that evening, the council adopted Minute Order 2304, appointing David Garcia Arreola and Charlie Plummer to 4-year terms on the Parks and Community Services Commission, ending on December 31st, 2026. That vote was unanimous and was a motion by Joseph and a second by Oro. Since February 2023, Commissioner Garcia Arreola has attended 11 of the 13 PCS meetings. On April 16th of this year, the council requested a future item related to Commissioner Garcia Arreola's appointment to the PCS. On May 7th, this item was listed as a future agenda item for tonight. And on May 10th, Commissioner Garcia Arreola was sent a written notification of this item tonight. The notice was sent by certified mail to the home address on file and was confirmed received on May 13th. The City Council retains sole authority to appoint PCS commissioners at any time during their respective terms for any reason or for no reason at all. If the council believes Commissioner Garcia Ariola's presence on the Parks and Community Services is no longer warranted, then staff would recommend a motion and a second to adopt a minute order revising the end of Commissioner Garcia Ariola's term to be effective today, May 21st, 2024. Happy to answer any questions or comments.
We taking public comment?
It would be your discretion, but it's been our practice to accept public comment on items.
Is there any public comment?
I have no one online.
Okay.
If there's no public comment, I'd like to make a motion to adopt minute order to revising the end of Commissioner David Garcia Arreola, term to be effective today, May 21st, 2024.
I'd like to have a little discussion first. We've identified that he attended 11 out of 13 meetings, and I went through and noticed one other commissioner had 2 misses as well, so I don't see the attendance as an issue. And I hate to put our Parks and Rec director on the spot, but from your perspective, has he shown up to meetings, prepared, looked as if he reviewed the agenda, asked intelligent questions, did the kinds of things?
You'll need to come to the podium.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. There's been several meetings where it doesn't seem as if Commissioner Garcia Arreola has come prepared to the meetings. In one case, we were working on an item to approve the fee update, and that was our second meeting, and he wanted to hold that item back because he didn't feel he had enough information. When I give updates about projects, the questions that I am asked are not always pertaining to the actual details of that project. It tends to be a little bit off course and maybe in a different direction of where we're trying to just, have the meeting discussion. So I'm not getting an indication that he is coming prepared and reading the materials.
Okay, thank you.
With respect to the fee adjustment, did you take that, did he request to sit down with you to go over it in detail?
He did not, no. I do tend to meet with the commissioners after the meeting if they have questions or comments, and that did not come up during the meeting, and it did not come up after the meeting that he needed additional details.
Okay, that was a very important piece of work that we had to take care of, to adjust fees. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Washington.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was actually hoping that Mr. David Garcia Arreola would have been in attendance today. I do know that we did do our due diligence in reaching out to him. Mm-hmm. I've also, for the record, want to make it known that I reached out to him personally 3 times and got negative responses from Mr. Garcia Arreola.
Is that negative response or no response?
Negative meaning no.
No. Okay. All right.
Sorry, police jargon.
Okay.
Sorry. I did the same with every other commissioner. I reached out to them from the Planning Commission, and I got responses by all but 2. Mr. Garcia Arreola was one of the 2 that did not respond, and I was disappointed about that as well. One, I believe every commissioner for every position that we appoint, the expectation is that they would respond to us because that is what they are there for, to be our advisors. And if we can't reach out to our advisors and expect our advisors to respond back to us, why are they Why are they on those positions, would be my question. I also went back and reviewed the actual interview that we had when we put them on. And even at that point, I had my reservations about selecting him as one of the people to be on the commission. I furthermore went back and looked at several of the planning commission meetings where, to be honest with you, I thought he was very condescending and disrespectful to you, Ally. And I apologize that we put a person like that in the commission to make your job difficult. So again, I apologize that we did that to you. Not intentionally, but it happened. If this was important to Mr. Garcia Arreola, he would have been here tonight. It's very obvious to me that it's not important to him. It is very important to me that we have the right people in the commissions, and I'm prepared to make a second on your motion, Councilmember Oral. That's all.
And I appreciate those comments, and I am disturbed that he's not here. It's easy to assume that, we've all made up our minds, but frankly, I haven't. Or if I made up my mind at all, it was leaning towards giving him a chance. But you gotta make your case. And if you choose not to make your case, that doesn't mean we're against you. It means you didn't try. And that's part of the job too.
And I'd like to piggyback on what you just said, because I'm all for mentoring. Yeah. And especially if a person we feel just needs a little bit of development. But I believe that I had a line of questions I wanted to ask him. Had he reached out to any of his other colleagues, for one? But that was a question I asked his colleagues as well. And they all told me that he's never reached out to them. So I'm just, those are just things. I've done my investigation on this, and I'm very comfortable with the decision I'm going to make tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I would comment also that I would expect him, I was hoping maybe Mr. Garcia Arreola would be here tonight to give his perspective on the situation. But we don't have that, and it's, I find it unfortunate and not in keeping with responsibility to not engage in that process. It's just, we work together. We try and build relationships together. It's a team effort always. And it's disappointing that he's not present. But it's also concerns me with details of how he works or does not work with his colleagues on the commission.
And it shouldn't be interpreted as we disagree with what he's doing, because as far as I'm concerned, I want the commissioners to kind of do a little pushback. I mean, the whole idea of developing good policy is a whole array of ideas, including those that we may not necessarily agree with. So
Correct, yes.
This has to do more with how he is basically how he has portrayed himself as a commissioner versus what he's said or done or what his position might be, as far as I'm concerned. So disappointing. I had high hopes. So
Okay. Council ready to take action on this?
Yes, sir. I've seconded that.
For public comment, and we have received none. Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Mark Joseph,
yes.
Councilmember Pierre Washington,
Yes.
Vice Mayor David Oro,
Yes.
Mayor Leon Garcia.
Yes. Thank you, council. We have concluded our business on this part of the special meeting. We will now adjourn to closed session. Thank you for your participation.
Hi, Mayor. How are you?
What are you selling?
No? My birthday, yes. Yes. My kids know. Yeah, we had a birthday for this.
Test.
September, no one's coming after September. Then Ryan's gonna be
council members to come to the dais, please. We'll get started.
You're the oldest, right?
Yes, the 18-year-old one. I have to.
I'm the last one.
Councilmember Washington. Let's get started. All right. Members, let me know when you're ready. Vice Mayor Orley, ready?
I'm ready, sir.
I'll call the meeting to order. Regular City Council meeting for City of American Canyon for May 21, 2024. Okay. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Miriam Abadamos is excused. Councilmember Mark Joseph.
I'm here.
Councilmember Pierre Washington.
Here.
Vice Mayor David Oro.
Here.
And Mayor Leon Garcia.
Here. Thank you. Move on now to report on closed session, report of confirmation of reportable action. Mr. Ross?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the public, your council convened in open session at 5:38 p.m. to address the matters agendized for closed session consideration after determining there was no public comment on those matters agendized for closed session consideration. You concluded the closed session at 6:25 p.m. With respect to the matters considered, I will do a written report upon return from closed session under the provisions of Government Code Section 5497.1B. That would conclude the report unless there are questions.
Any questions from council members?
No, sir.
Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Ross. Move on to our two proclamations and presentations this evening. We have a proclamation for May 27, 2024 as Memorial Day. I am always very pleased, and I'm sure many of us are, as how well we celebrate the contributions of our military and the sacrifices they've made. Is there someone here to receive the proclamation? Thank you for being here. City of American Canyon Proclamation, May 27, 2024 as Memorial Day. Whereas, on Memorial Day, we undertake the solemn duty to remember the courageous men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of our country and the cause of freedom around the world. And whereas we honor those who answer the call of duty, we understand and appreciate the values of patriotism, citizenship, commitment, honor, and duty. And whereas when we consider the sacrifice, we must never forget that freedom comes at a cost, and we are the beneficiaries of their sacrifice. And whereas even though the loss of a fallen hero can never be replaced, Memorial Day is an opportunity for all of us to recognize and honor our military fallen and Gold Star families through faith, love, and peace. And whereas the American Canyon Troop Support, VFW Post 1123, American Canyon Community Church, American Canyon Army Recruiting Station, American Canyon High School Public Display of a cappella, Canyon Oaks Elementary School, students, Open Door Church, Jesse Martinez, American Canyon High School student, Delphine Metcalf Foster, First Sergeant, U.S. Army retired, Disabled American Veterans, past National and Department Commander, retired U.S. Army Sergeant, Jeremy Prophet, American Canyon Starbucks, Fran Lemos, Cindy Biederman, Beth Marcos, Hugh Marquez, and Mark and Julie Foster will join Gold Star families various community leaders, and members who will be gathering in remembrance of Veterans Memorial Park on May 27, 2024, for a Memorial Day ceremony. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Leon Garcia, Mayor, City of American Canyon, on behalf of the City Council, do proclaim Monday, May 27, 2024, as Memorial Day, a day for paying our respects and honoring the men and women who gave their lives serving our country, and to their families who continue to honor their memory and legacy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have comments you'd like to give? Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. Good job. Please share with your thoughts, please.
Good evening, Beth Marcus. On behalf of the American Canyon Troop Support and for all of us who are on the committee, I want to thank you for this proclamation. It's a sad time to have to honor our loved ones that have been killed during war, but we appreciate the fact that they are still remembered.
Hugh Marcus, I just want to say thank you.
Right. Do we have a photo opportunity here? Now we're going to have a presentation. Kids Commerce Business License Fee Waiver. And the recommendation is adopt a minute order waiving business license fees for our youth.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having us here tonight. I'm Valerie Zizek-Mores, President CEO at the American Canyon Chamber of Commerce. I'm really excited to say that it's been such an honor to partner with the City of American Canyon on the Kids Commerce program and allowing our youth students to obtain business licenses and participate at our Meet Me in the Street event. So last year we did the same thing where we came here in front of the council. We asked them to waive the business licenses for 17 students. And the great news is that 13 of those students renewed their business licenses this year, and that just shows us the success of this program. I'm really honored to say that we have two of those returning students in the audience today. If they could just stand up for me. I have Kayla Ryan. She was one of our Kids Commerce students who braved the food permit with Napa County and had a ice cream cookie business. She decided that the food industry was a little bit tough and challenging, and she's coming back this year with her own body scrub line that she is creating on her own. So we're really excited to see how that pans out for her, and we're really excited for the fact that she was brave enough to come back again this year. We also have Paige Appleby here with us, and she is a returning Kids Commerce student who does a buy and resell method of hot items like croc charms and bracelets, and she's extremely successful. She also came back this year to share her wisdom with the group at one of our Kids Commerce learning sessions and taught them how to set up a successful table and to make it eye-appealing to the audience. So I'm really proud of these girls. They're both in 8th grade here at the American Canyon Middle School, and to think that these girls are, learning and using their efforts to put together a business, and they're being successful. So I just want to give them a congratulations before we honor our 2023 students this year. So thank you very much.
Bravo. There you go.
So the American Canyon Chamber of Commerce is working on a youth and workforce foundation that we're launching. And this year we were hoping to have our EIN and our funding for this program. And unfortunately, that didn't come through in time to receive grant money for the program. So we kept the numbers lower this year, just learning last year that a big crowd does take some resources from the chamber and from the business community to support it. We also put an age restriction. Last year it was 5 years old until seniors in high school, but we decided that it is really challenging for the young ones, especially the long hours that meet me in the street. So we did put an age requirement this year for middle school and high schoolers. So we have 9 completed businesses this year. The number is less, but we feel like these are going to be really great quality businesses. And we have 3 businesses that are working to get their food permits through the county, which is a big challenge. They have to do an 8-hour online food handlers course before they can obtain the county food permit. So they put a lot of hours and work into this, and we're really excited for them, and we know that this is not an easy task. Part of the program is also an 8-week session at the chamber. They're coming in for 1 hour per week, and we're giving them everything from how to run a budget, a business plan, how to make a logo, how to create your own marketing material, how to set up a point of sale, Facebook, Instagram. We're really teaching them Business 101 in this 8-week course. And it's showing in the quality of the businesses that are coming out to meet me in the street. So before we start the business licenses, I just want to let everybody know that we are going to be at Canyon Plaza on Wednesday of next week from 5 to 6:30 p.m. This is going to be the Kids Commerce Kickoff where the businesses come out. We provide evaluation sheets and we ask the community to come out, purchase some items. With each evaluation sheet you fill out, you get $10 to spend in the business. And we encourage you to spend at least $10 of your own money so that these kids can get ready for the crowds that are going to be coming at Meet Me in the Street and have a little bit of preparation before they get thrown out there the first day. So if you have some time next week on Wednesday, 5 to 6:30, we're going to be out in front of Dr. Nicolini's office and Canyon Plaza. We hope to see you out there to come out and support the businesses. But with that said, I'm going to call Teresa up, and we're going to read off each business and hand out their certificates of completion for Kids Commerce and give them their business licenses tonight.
Would you like the council to come forward?
I would love to have the council. If you could come up and shake the hands of the students, that would be fantastic. Jason, you're welcome.
I'm
also,
actually
if
going
you'd
to
like.
read those names from here.
Okay,
But
perfect.
You guys, when you guys are ready. Okay, we have Sophie and Derek from Coffee and Cocoa on the Go. Carlos from Fresco Aguas Frescas. Danica from Condor's Crochet. Okay, sorry, I can't see. Hosea from Green Aroma, Hosea's Candles. Kayla from Blissful Body Scrubs. Nayeli from Zamzi. Isaac from Something Sweet. and Danny from Equality Shirts.
Congratulations to all of you. This is a huge accomplishment, and we're all very proud of you. I just want to give one final thank you to the city staff here at the City of American Canyon. You guys are amazing, and you really show your partnership with the Chamber of Commerce, and supporting our youth is just absolutely amazing. So thank you all, and we greatly appreciate the support.
We need to.
Well, thank you all for that presentation. That was,
Mayor Garcia, we do actually need to vote on that minute order.
yes, we do. But so we need a motion to.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we go ahead and waive the business license fees for the youth participants in the Chamber's Kids Commerce Program.
And I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Joseph,
Yes.
Councilmember Washington,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Oro,
Yes.
Mayor Garcia.
Yes. Thank you, council. All right. Well, it's a learning curve, but it's a very valuable learning curve that will reflect on a lot of the decisions you make in life. Now I'd like to introduce the American Canyon Police Explorers. Good evening, Chief Greenberg.
Hello, Rick Greenberg, Police Chief. So good evening, Mayor, Council, and members of the community. Tonight I'm pleased to introduce you to your 2024 ACPD Police Explorers. And we'll introduce them individually here in just a moment. This year, our Police Explorer program was resurrected after a remission of several years, unfortunately, but we're happy to have it back. The past several months, our explorers have gone through numerous hours of training, including proper uniform attire, as you can see, radio codes, policies and procedures, and everyone's favorite, physical training. Their first assignment will be on June 12th at Meet Me in the Street. So joining me here tonight is one of their instructors, Officer Morgan, and also Lieutenant Dudley, who manages the program. So this evening I have the pleasure of pinning their badges that they've worked so hard to earn. So I'm going to call them each up one by one and present them their badge. And if there's any friends or family in the crowd tonight, that's a great opportunity for a photo op as well. So first up will be Explorer Isaac.
Extra starchy.
Yeah, a little stiff material there. Next up, we have Explorer Julian.
And then next up, we have Explorer Ryan. And then last but not least, we have Explorer Andrew. So we look forward to their hard work and dedication, not only to the community, but their school and their family and their friends. So let's give them one more last round of applause.
It's exciting to see a whole career begin at that level. It certainly is. Right, somewhere here. That's my next item.
Don't be
Okay, next up.
shy.
Oh,
Come on.
yeah, come on up. Next is the city proclamation for May 19 to May 25, 2024 is National Public Works Week. Had a great luncheon celebrating all our staff today. Just, there's so much of that work that just goes unnoticed, and it's done by very dedicated people and who want to serve the community. And it's just, if you think about all these things that we kind of take for granted sometimes. But that's it's dedication and commitment by our public works staff to make sure everything functions as it should. And we keep everything up in working order. So with great pleasure, I would like to read. May 29 to May 25, 2024, National Public Works Week. Whereas public works professionals are the behind-the-scenes employee that focus on infrastructure, facilities, and service that are of vital importance to our community and their work is essential to public health and advancement of quality of life for all people in the city of American Canyon. And whereas the City of American Canyon infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided and maintained without the efforts of our public works professionals. And whereas the City of American Canyon Public Works and Maintenance and Utilities Department workforces are a diverse, hardworking group of dedicated first responders, including engineers, supervisors, lead workers, maintenance workers, mechanics, technicians, water and wastewater operators who are responsible for maintaining and protecting our streets, creeks, water treatment, wastewater treatment, public buildings, parks, landscaping, and structures and facilities essential for the sustainability of American Canyon. That's a lot of turf to cover. And whereas it is in the public interest for residents, students, businesses, owners, and community leaders in the City of American Canyon to understand the vital importance of public works and to support the success of public works programs in our community. Whereas 2024 marks the 64th Annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. It is a pleasure of the City of American Canyon to again join with the APWA to recognize and commend all public works professionals in the City of American Canyon and throughout the state of California. And now therefore, be it resolved that I, Leon Garcia, Mayor, City of American Canyon, on behalf of the American Canyon City Council, do hereby proclaim this week, May 19 through May 25, 2024, as National Public Works Week in the City of American Canyon, and call upon all residents to recognize and give thanks for all the contributions that the city public works professionals make every day in advancing the quality of life for all. Thank you, and more than just thank you, just El Medico Corazon. It's a very committed task, and I thank you for your dedication to the city. Thank you.
You have to come get it. Okay. Yeah. Oh, she has to get it. Yeah, you're going to say something after you get it. Yeah. We did 3 of these already, Erica. You should.
Good evening, Mayor,
see
City
the drill,
Council,
right?
and members of the community. Erica Almond-Smithies, Public Works Director. It's an honor to be up here and work with this amazing group of men and women that do work tirelessly, wind, rain, floods, sometimes fires, to keep things running here in the city. And many of them do not get this kind of thank you, and it's supportive. It shows the support the council and the community being here, and then the group that is able to be here tonight. It's only a fraction of the whole team of approximately 50 team members when we're fully staffed, so really appreciate taking the time out for this tonight and celebrating the whole week of Public Works and those who be able to make the lunch today. Minus the.
I love the little airplane system. I know Vice Mayor Orl has a thought or two about that.
But thank you, and it's just here we are, and you know, it's just we love doing what we do, and I think I'm speaking for everyone. I think we all love what we do, or else we wouldn't be here tonight. So.
Well, when I see Public Works out driving around, you know, I wave. It's easy to spot my van. It's kind of unique. But yeah, you know, it's just a thank you to say, you know, it's not an easy job always. You know, we're kind of limited to sometimes feeling a little bit spread, a little bit thin. But you know what? We do the best we can with what we got to make it work, and it shines. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
You be put up?
Yes. Shut up. Good representation of the team.
where's the airplane?
Oh my God. I wonder if you dropped that off of Becky's desk. We gotta get the council members in here.
That's right over there.
I'll clear out a little bit. Thank you. Okay, we're going to give it a little time to get the people's. Right, we're going to continue with the meeting, folks. You could take your conversation outside, please. Right. No. Thank you. I know it's an exciting time. We'd like to chat, but we gotta get through with our businesses for this evening. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. We have another proclamation in May 2024 as National Bike Month. Is someone here to receive the proclamation? Oh, very good. All right. Good evening and welcome. Had a great time at Bike Fest in Napa. I think they had this little game called the Tube Toss. I got to beat the target. It was fun. City of American Canyon Proclamation. May 2024 is National Bike Month. Whereas the City of American Canyon recognizes May 2024 as National Bike Month, which creates an opportunity for our community to celebrate the simple joys of getting outside and riding a bike. Whereas bicycling stimulates fun, inspires a healthy and active lifestyle for all ages and skill levels. And whereas bicycle riding is an environmentally friendly form of transportation that increases air quality, reduces air pollution, carbon dioxide, and greenhouse gas emissions that contribute to global climate change. And whereas having bikeways is good for the entire community, calming traffic, reducing congestion on roadways, creating a safer environment for people walking and children playing. And whereas bicycling can help improve mental health by reducing stress, anxiety, and depression, can enhance creativity and productivity. And whereas programs like Safe Route to School, Bike Bash events, family biking workshops, and Bike to Work and School days provide critical opportunities to both educate and encourage members of our community to walk and bike. And whereas whether you bike to work or school, ride to save money or time, pump those pedals to preserve your health or the environment, or simply to explore your community, National Bike Month is an opportunity to celebrate the unique power of the bicycle and the many reasons we ride. And now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Leon Garcia, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim May 2024 as Bike Month in American Canyon. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor Garcia, council members, and members of the public. My name is Kara Werner, and I'm the executive director of the Napa County Bicycle Coalition. I realize I'm your final proclamation tonight, and you've had many, but I have many thank yous this year, so I do want to just take a moment to say them. And the first is just thank you for recognizing May as Bike Month, for elevating it, for helping the public understand all of the great benefits that come with biking that you mentioned in your proclamation. So thank you for your leadership on that. I also just want to thank the City of American Canyon's involvement in Bike Month this year. So not only are you a sponsor, but we did have Mayor Garcia in our game of Tube the Mayor, which was quite a hit, especially among other electeds and children who lined up to ring him with a bike tube. We also want to thank Councilmember Joseph for staffing our first combined Bike to Work and School Day Energizer station that was both community and school, for partnering with the schools on that. I want to thank City Manager Holly and Director Amon Smithies for engaging with us around some design work this year. And with that, we were able to come up with a design alternative that might not have been up for discussion otherwise. So really value and appreciate that partnership. I want to thank Director Aikita for partnering with us and her staff on hosting events here in American Canyon, like biking workshops. And finally, I want to thank Chief Greenberg, who very patiently answers my quarterly calls for data, which allow us to continue our Office of Traffic Safety grant. And to reapply for that, it's what funds our Safe Routes to School work primarily. And we've been in the elementary schools in American Canyon this year with the 4th and 5th graders doing a couple of days of in-class bike safety and pedestrian safety education, along with on-bike bike rodeos to follow that, having a very, very fun time here. So there's so many ways in which the City of American Canyon has celebrated this, not just with this proclamation, but by showing up and being a part of it. And other council members have in years past as well. So I want to thank you. I also want to ask for your continued leadership to make a low-stress bike network here in American Canyon so that everybody can feel comfortable riding, no matter their age or ability, that students can get to school on bike. And I just look forward to that partnership continuing. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll get a photo up with the bike.
And the story behind this bike, no, I never did. Still got a long way to go. Here has the Napa Bike Fest, and last year I was going there, and the hub had a spot, and this bike was $200, and I could not pass it up. I showed up in the morning, came back in the afternoon, and bought it. Didn't tell my wife though. Until I brought it home. It'll be on display all council meetings. Sure, good luck. Available for photos. Public speaking.
You know, I have a family story to share with regarding bicycles. When my son was in Cub Scouts, being a din dad, me and my other father, who was the din dad, came up and said, "Guys, we got a great project today. We're going to learn how to fix the flat tire on your BMX bicycle." So we took that out. My son Andre was, of course, had his BMX. He was working on it. Well, it moved forward about 20 years. He's a bicycle mechanic. So that inspired him. Hopefully something like that inspires them to bicycle as well. Some areas of the world, I think, particularly in the Netherlands, well, it's just very flat, and there's very crowded, and there's an awful lot of bicycles. That's the main form of transportation in a lot of areas. So good to encourage that, and good that we encourage it here. And I look forward for more advanced bicycle safety, bicycle commuting opportunities, particularly when we got weather like today. My God, you can't complain in California when the sun's out shining, and it's a beautiful time to be out and enjoy a ride. So thank you. And thank you for coming today. Okay, we'll move on with our agenda. Public comment. Items not on closed session or open session. What? Oh, I'm sorry. We have a presentation of Vine Trail updates. Yes. It's not in blue.
Teresa, are you managing the slides?
You have it on, you're just going to select your
Oh, I do it. Wow, you're letting me control.
I can help if you like.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing this. We've made some considerable progress has been made on this.
You trust me?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so this is, I'm controlling it, huh? All right. And there's the, can I do it this way too? Oh, the arrow, okay. Perfect, thank you.
Would just make sure you speak in the mic so they can hear you on
Okay.
the stream.
Okay, perfect. Mayor Garcia, council
Good evening,
members,
welcome.
members of the public. My name is Sean Casey White. I'm the executive director of the Napa Valley Vine Trail. And it's a pleasure to work with all of you in your commitment, as Kara was just saying, for safe shared routes, and you've always taken the lead. I was just telling Erica that we really try to talk about the American Canyon and try to replicate what you've done, particularly how you work with businesses and developers to ensure that pathways, shared use, the Vine Trail is included in those developments and is really linking the community. You've done an outstanding job at really garnering that without having to apply for grants. I still marvel at that. And we'll get to those slides in a second, but I just wanted to state that off the beginning about what a lead you have taken and how you really are the gateway of Napa, and you stand that way with and how you supported the Vine Trail. Just a little pause here because the Vine Trail did win not just a national award, but a global destination service award for wine communities. And so we had pretty good company there with chateaus and other estates in different parts of the world like Verona and Argentina. So just a wonderful way to be recognized. And again, it could not be done without all of the jurisdictions' support and what we are trying to do together and build 47 continuous miles that connect through the entire valley. I'm going to try to do this quickly because I know you've got lots of stuff to get there. If you want this PowerPoint presentation, it'll be available. I just wanted to announce really quickly that we will be opening two new sections of the Vine Trail this year. The first one is Calistoga to St. Helena or St. Helena to Calistoga, depending on which city you're from. And that'll be 8.2 miles, and that will open officially August 16th. And the trail from Vallejo Ferry to American Canyon at the Newell Space Open District will officially open in late August. Now, of course, the Veterans Park and that section, 2-mile section, was previously built by this city, but it's exciting to be able to say that now all 7 miles are connected, and we look forward to celebrating that with American Canyon as well as Vallejo. That brings us to 30 miles. That means that some of the parts aren't all connected, but we're getting there, and we just finished a strategic plan this year that actually outlines the budget and the strategy to reach all 47 miles by 2028, which will be our 20th anniversary. So it's a good projection. But that means that we have a little half a mile that's left up to developers in Calistoga with Indian Springs. Eric and I are still working with Watson Ranch to make that connection. I'm also working with the city and Napa Pipe to finish their development section. And we are investing $100,000 in early engineering and survey work and environmentals for the connection between City of Napa Kennedy Park to American Canyon. And so we'll look at that in a little bit. And then there's a little third of a mile. Why, I don't know, they didn't include it, but it's still a dirt path in Vallejo. So we're going to have to fix that one. And that wraps us up to have all 47 miles completed. Oh, I missed the biggest part. 10.2 miles between Yountville and St. Helena. It is what we're focused on now, thanks to Mike Thompson and a federal community programs grant. We've been able to launch engineering. We're now at 35% plan in front of Caltrans, and we're moving to be at 65% by July. So we're moving very quickly, and I'm happy to say that 50 landowners, 33 vineyards have favorably given their indication that they will donate easements to complete that trail. These numbers are wrong, so don't look at this, but this is something that people want to see, so I'm gonna just flash through that. What people want to know is how much did the Vine Trail cost? And I'll just go back and look at this for a second. When I was pointing out American Canyon, I just want to point out, it doesn't mean that the labor and the time and the sweat equity that Public Works, so it's perfect that you honored them, have put into this, but how extraordinary that you've done that with very, very little funds, because you've leaned in on the developers and other people that are building the infrastructure and building this beautiful community. So I just think that that's extraordinary. But I will point out that we have really leaned on state and federal grants. 75% of the trail, when it's completed, it'll be expensive, but it will be paid for, $75 million, through government grants. So the large majority of the investment is coming into the community through active transportation grants. And in fact, the one section that I just mentioned that will connect Kennedy Park to American Canyon, we've applied for a conservation priority area grant to complete the engineering on that section. We are doing all new signage now that we have 2 new sections of trails, so expect those to be available to Public Works. That will include the connections to Vallejo and the rest of the trail and the new updates. We're including all of the MVT bus stops, parking, restroom areas, shopping districts, including American Canyon, so that people know how to access the services. And it's not easy when Kara is saying, you know, just take a bike instead of a car. But if we know where we can connect to, then I think we'll be more comfortable taking a bike or walking to get services. And we have to recognize that we have probably 5,000 to 10,000 people in Napa County that don't have automobile transportation. So having access to trails and a safe place to walk is critically important, or at least be able to take public transportation and then complete the loop to your job or to school within a quarter mile, but have a safe way to get there. So in the farming areas, we're going to be adding a new landowner signs that bring back a focus on ag respect, because in the new sections will be in the ag preserve. We're also going to be communicating slow and say hello. So even if you have a class 3 bike and want to go fast, we're hoping that when you go on these trails that you're going to be you'll want to slow down and really appreciate the beauty that we have. Just coming in from Napa, you know, the fields that as you come into American Canyon and the vineyards and the hills, we just got to slow down and see all of that beauty around us and be glad that we live here and that we get to enjoy it. So, and how much greater would it be if we're slow and we just get to greet each other and say hello, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're also adding all the signs in bilingually. So when you see a welcome sign, you're going to see it in both English and Spanish. There'll be QR codes that will be able to geo-target where you are and show you a route map and be able to send you more information. We'll be publishing new pocket maps, which will include the City of American Canyon. Those will be available this summer before the openings. This is just a quick snapshot of what's happening in St. Helena. We're about 12 weeks from the opening. And for those of you that are interested, particularly in vineyard and farm work, we'll be having an open installation of Park Tread, which is the last surface treatment that will be on the trail. And that's particularly important where we have working farms. And I just brought this slide to show something that I think is important and why the connection to American Canyon can't be understated, which is the commute patterns that are here in Napa County. And we did an independent research. We asked 50 of the top employers in Napa County where their employees lived. And so by zip code, we sorted and completed this graph, which shows the traffic patterns of folks leaving from American Canyon into Napa, but also people that are traveling into St. Helena and people that are leaving Calistoga and coming into St. Helena and also further into Napa. And so we know anytime you are on Highway 121 what those patterns look like. And it just reinforces that if we can just get 8% of people to try alternate transportation, we can be one step further in reducing those greenhouse gas emissions. This is what the trail connection looks like for Yountville to St. Helena. This is another snapshot of the treatments that we're looking at. Sometimes people want to know what bike boulevards look like, or how in the world are you going to transform Main Street in St. Helena on a busy highway? There are solutions, and we're working on those that will be safe to travel on. And then I think what's most important is this is the most recent, as of 1 month ago, the study that we're doing with RSA, and this is the suggested alignment that we are working on. There are 4 property managers or property owners that we're working with, and they've all indicated an indication that they'll be donating easements, and as well as we'll have to pay Napa Sanitation because they're a public entity, but we think they'll be a fair public entity. And we are also applying for a Coastal Conservancy grant because of the waterways and access to the Napa River. And just today, in a meeting with one of the property owners next to Napa Pipe, they are actually suggesting an alternate route that they might invest in. So again, taking a note from Erica and American Canyon, I'm channeling her spirit and energy, and we are going to start negotiations with them to maybe consider paying for at least a half a mile of that section. So this is how it continues down. We cross the new hotel development of Monticello, which is right before we get to the new NVTA maintenance yard, and then widen the sidewalks, again, following the lead of American Canyon along Devlin on the west side. And then this last connection, which connects to the project that American Canyon completed in 2022, is this last Napa unincorporated area connection. This is the estimated cost of both projects. Because it's 11 miles, will cost a little bit more, and it is in 33 vineyards. It'll be about $48 million all in. And we estimate that Napa Sanitation to airport will be somewhere around 11 to 12 million. Again, 75% of this is paid through active transportation grants. So I just want to thank you for your time. This is a commitment that we're doing together. Hopefully I get to come back for 5 more years and tell you about the updates. And then you'll be so sick of me after that, and we'll have the trail built, that then we can start thinking about how we're going to get to Sonoma from here. But in the meantime, I just wanted to say thank you, and it is a pleasure to work with the City of American Canyon. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go for a ride.
Okay, let's go. I did drive here, but I have an electric car, so try to be good.
No,
Thank you.
I think I'm looking forward to having more of that in our future, really.
And I've been talking with the TID about maybe doing some kind of special opportunity. I want to work with Erica on wayfinding where we have the connections of the Vine Trail, and now that we have the new signs and we have new maps, I think it's time that we do more recognition of American Canyon and show off those connections. So I expect to be working with her and really seeing that shown and represented.
Thank you. Yeah, I think looking, a lot of questions I get is trying to get north to Napa on a bicycle, something that's a little safer route than what we have.
Nobody cares about getting to Napa now. All they want to do is get to Costco. That is seriously what I hear the most. And so when I was at Bike Fest this year, I bought an adult trike. So now I have a large basket that can haul 50 pounds. Yeah. So, I'm ready for Costco anytime.
Yeah, you're ready for Costco. You need one of those that big if you go to Costco.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Okay, now we're ready for public comment. Anything not on the agenda?
I do have a card from Mr. Hugh Marquez.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Hugh Marquez. Thank you, Council, Mayor. Last council meeting, we had discussion over bike lanes on Rio Del Mar and what was going on. And today I was going down Military East in Benicia and saw what was something that I thought the residents of Rio Del Mar may want to look at, and some of the council and the mayor may want to go down and see. They literally had parking on both sides with the center line with bike. I think it was sort of the class 2, where the bike is in the middle, but there was parking on both sides. And so I was there today, and I happened to be driving down, and it hit me because I was coming to the council meeting tonight, that there may be something to look at, to look for what other cities have done in order to mitigate taking away parking and allowing traffic still to flow. And they're still allowing bike. They had the bike markings. It's there. There was no bikes on the road. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention that maybe we can look at other cities and see what we can do to mitigate taking away parking for some of those people in Rio Del Mar. I know you wanted to talk to the residents, but that's someplace that even the residents could go by close by. They can look at it and see if that would be acceptable to them. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have another speaker?
I have no other speaker cards, and I have no hands raised online.
Okay, very good. Well, we'll close. I will close public comment at this time. We'll move on to our agenda. Agenda changes. If there's nothing item being drawn from the consent calendar, I'll accept the motion for consent calendar.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second.
Okay, motion and second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Joseph?
Yes.
Councilmember Washington?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Oro?
Yes.
Mayor Garcia?
Yes. Thank you, council. Moving on now to public hearings. Item number 18, design permit ordinance update.
Thank you, Mayor, council members, and members of the community. I'm Brent Cooper, Community Development Director, and pleased to bring to you an amendment to our design permit process in the zoning ordinance. So this item is brought to you because of our housing element, which is planned for housing all members of our community. And if you think about housing, it really is the foundation of what makes a community. All of us here live in town and in housing, and so it's a very important need in our community today and in the future. Our housing element is one of the few parts of the general plan that has to be certified by the state of California, and they did so in June of 2023, just last year. There are a lot of communities in California that still don't have a certified housing element, and without a certification, the state can overturn a lot of local control on housing. Within the housing element, there is a variety of programs that are intended to help facilitate housing. A key area with this current housing element, which is a little different than the one 8 years ago, is really an emphasis on ways of being able to reduce constraints to housing, particularly those that can affect minorities and vulnerable members of our community. And so overall, there are approximately 70 programs in the housing element that need to be accomplished within the 8-year period. And some of those are done on an annual or biannual basis. So I'll be bringing you a variety of things over the next 8 years to help implement the housing element. But we'll be taking care of some of them at Meet Me in the Streets and workshops and other ways as well. So what we're talking about tonight is one of those implementation measures. And what was called out specifically in the housing element is our design permit process has some subjective language that can mean that the outcome of a process in the city can vary depending upon subjectivity. We're very careful about that in the Community Development Department, and I'll talk a bit about how we use our design permit application, but the language in the code itself does suggest or invite, whether it's the planners, the public, or decision makers, that there's room for opinions and sort of on-the-cuff standards that apply to one project and maybe not another, which leads to an inherent unfair process. The Planning Commission considered this ordinance at its last meeting in April and recommends unanimously the City Council approves it. So I wanted to just bring that to your attention. So for those of you that don't work in the Community Development Department, you might wonder, what is a design permit? It really is a foundational approval that developers need to get from either the Planning Department or the Planning Commission, and in some cases the City Council, before they can build a project in the city. So once they get their design permit approval, then they're able to get building permits and grading permits, and you can start to see change around town. All that happens after they receive a design permit. The design permit really demonstrates how the project meets our development standards, and we have quite a few of them. They're in the zoning code for height, setbacks, parking, landscaping and the such, but there are engineering standards with water quality, air quality. There's a host of things. Also bundled into this is compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act. And so there are quite a few adopted standards. And so all of those are addressed and reviewed when we have a design permit application. I'd mentioned that the Planning Commission approves most of them. Smaller projects are by code allowed to be approved by the Community Development Director. And in some cases, it's the City Council, particularly when there's an environmental impact report that has statements of overriding consideration, but that's a topic for another day. We also found that when we took a look at our design permit application, it also referred to applying when there are changes and alterations to projects. We have another separate part of the code that deals with that. And so just to kind of clean things up and kind of make sure that we don't have any overlap or duplication, we sort of remove those portions of the design permit because it's covered by another part of the code. To sort of graphically show what a design permit might look like, here are some pictures of recent design permits that were recently approved at the city. So as you can see, the outcome are beautiful projects that contribute to our community and make this place a better place to live. I'd mentioned that in our Community Development Department, we don't use subjectivity in the way in which we permit our projects. And the Planning Commission, who approves most of them, doesn't do that either. So we're very careful to identify what are the adopted standards that apply to a project. And so we make sure that right up front, those are identified, and to the extent that a project doesn't meet certain standards, we clarify what they are and what the applicant needs to do to correct that. It isn't completely just a sort of straightforward process. Every project is a little unique, every location is a little unique. You can get a lot of different standards, as I mentioned. Sometimes they might conflict or they might need to be reconciled. Sometimes there may be more than one way to accomplish something. And so we consider alternatives, we balance competing interests in our conversation dialogue with the applicant. In some cases, there are adopted processes for a variance, to reduce setbacks or lot coverage, various things. There are standards in which you can consider those. There are engineering design standards exceptions with roadway designs and things, but there is a technical process to evaluate all of that. So whatever does happen in the way of weighing interests and looking at things, that's all discussed in a staff report that goes to the decision-making body. We also notify the public as the project's submitted, and then before the application, we have a process that allows people to bring in comments so that we can respond to those and include those in our overall review. And then ultimately the project's approved by the Planning Commission. So if we're talking about standards and what's important in a project, we're always tying it to something that's adopted. We're not thinking of something new on the fly and then applying that. And that's where the subjectivity comes in. We don't do that now. So in many ways, what's proposed for the design permit is really catching up to the way that we manage our projects professionally today. There are a variety of red line changes. You can see it in the packet if you're interested in exactly what we're doing where. I kind of broke it down into some categories in the ordinance, just in kind of flavor of what we're doing here. If we look on the table here on the right-hand side, the current language is talking about let's create excellence in our adopted standards, which as you see on the left-hand side that gets to stay. That's what we're interested in, the adopted standards. Other things that may be subjective are harmonious building appearance, surrounding area compatibility, produce stable character. Those are all important things, but if they're important, you'll find them in an adopted standard. We don't, on a case-by-case basis, or in the opinion of an individual or somebody who speaks loud, we don't change what might mean harmonious building on the fly. That would be subjective. So that's why we're really bringing us back here to what is it that the city has adopted, and that's our standard. Now, if we don't like our standards, we can always change those, but we don't do them on the fly, or we don't do them case by case, or it's not based on an individual, whoever may be involved at the time. The other part I've mentioned here is kind of next line down, applies to new construction. There are changes and alterations to buildings all the time. As I mentioned, that's handled by another part of the code. It has its own criteria. So we've kind of changed that sort of administrative change. Further down in the ordinance, it talks about the scope. It might encourage today staff's opinions on appropriateness of development. I mentioned that we're sort of striking language that would suggest that. We're bringing us back to adopted standards. And then the findings of approval, there are several that talk and might suggest that the findings to approve it are based upon opinions. So back again to adopted standards. So that's kind of perhaps, hopefully, a simple message so that people know that when they come to the city that they're getting treated fairly. We're basing what we do on things that have come before the city council and have been adopted through a process that involves public involvement and public hearings. And so it's a fair and equitable process. So down here, our recommendation, we recommend the city council adopt the zone change proposals. And just for those of you wondering, this is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act because it's certainty, it won't change the environment. It's consistent with state law, and it's already directed that we do this in our adopted housing element. So the change to go to adopted standards itself is a standard in the housing element. So we kind of come full circle. So with that, I'm glad to answer any questions.
Okay. Well, thank you for the presentation. It's good to have the update. Vice Mayor Orrell?
Yeah, thank you for that. So I read the packet and I get it. I understand why you want to remove subjectivity out of planning for housing and approving housing, because I know that people in the state of municipalities in the state of California have abused it. Use subjective language to stop housing projects that they didn't like for no other reason. But as I read it, I was like, well, what kind of discretion do we actually have? And how do we remove subjectivity while ensuring council desires and outcomes? And I'll give you an example. The Broadway District Specific Plan calls for modern farmhouse look up and down the highway and building. I think we're doing a poor job of enforcing that, and we're not hitting it at all, quite honestly. How do we adhere to that, even though, do we build language in, or do we make it more specific? Will it come back to council in a more specific way that adheres to our guidelines and desires while removing subjectivity?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Councilman Orr. You raise a good issue on architecture. The Broadway District Plan has actually two architectural standards. One is farmhouse, another one is industrial, modern industrial. So there are two that's in there now, And so some projects may lean towards one or the other. The standards, though, if we're dissatisfied with them, can always be changed. So today they reside with respect to the Broadway district in the specific plan. The specific plan itself could be amended to update the architecture as the council chose. The point of this design permit would be the architecture wouldn't be dependent upon the whims of any one of us, apart from what has gone to the council for adoption. So we can update the architectural standards, absolutely.
But give me an example now. I mean, it's subjectivity. If it's modern farmhouse and they say it looks like a farm, like what do we? What? Can you give me an example of how that might work to us and where those things might conflict or agree?
Well, part of the process today is when we receive an application, it's posted on the website and we invite comments. So from day one, if the architecture doesn't appeal to somebody, they can make a comment about that. And then if there is an alternate between one or another, or perhaps the interpretation of a style isn't sufficient. Now, we had a conversation about that with the Hampton Inn, approved down the street here. It came out, I would say, very modern looking, and it conflicted with the architecture of the shopping center next door. We had a workshop with the council. The staff had suggested that they reorient their architecture closer to the neighbor, but it was the council workshop that really brought the message home to the applicant, and they changed it. So we do want to know issues early on while we have room to amend them. And so architecture definitely is something that could be discussed early on.
Yeah, early on, but when does it get us into trouble to being subjective, right? So the state of California is looking pretty hard at all housing elements and housing design and approving. And I'm just thinking to myself, I hear this, and maybe it's a legal question for Mr. Ross in terms of how we may interpret this or how we may approach this as a governing body to where we're like, hey, this is what we want, but the state of California says, no, you are being very subjective in this. It's unclear to me where the lines are drawn, and I'm trying to get a better understanding of it because I read the packet, I saw the presentation, I still don't get it.
Okay,
Yeah.
if I may, Mayor and Council, I think there's two segregated actions. There's the HCD review of our housing element, right, for its content for prospective decisions. Doesn't affect, in my mind legally, the adopted specific plan, Broadway specific plan. That has standards. Now, when individual developments come up, you're still going to have the discretion to perform design review. Do we have standards that are applicable in Broadway? Yes. My answer would be that was approved, that was found to be consistent at the housing element at that time. So yes, you apply those same standards that are in the specific plan. I think the real concern of HCD in review of the housing element was to review what they thought were subjective standards. I would go by the plain meaning of design review. Does it really come down to what you think is farmhouse in terms of future architecture within the specific plan area? Yeah, it is. Is the farmhouse standards defined? No, it's not. So there's a built-in element from my mind of subjectivity in the adopted specific plan that remains valid. If you want to be honest, I think this type of review by HCD really is form over substance. They want this, that's fine, if this is what we have to do to get approval of the housing element. But as far as the adoption of the Broadway specific plan, that remains valid. It was found to be consistent at that time.
I get it, but we're changing it now to something that's going to happen in the future, and there's still a lot of opportunity that's going to happen in the future. I don't know where my guidelines are going.
I don't know that you have guidelines other than the general designation of architectural form now.
Yeah.
You know, to be frank, I think this is one of the weaknesses of this HCD review, is they're charged with removing subjective standards in our zoning ordinance and land use documents, specifically the housing element, that serve as an impediment for achieving affordable housing goals. Quite respectfully, the facts speak differently. You've met your RENA, you know, you've done it in the past cycle, you're gonna do it in this cycle. So I think this is something that realistically you're gonna have to live with, right? And, you know, to my way of thinking, you are gonna exercise discretion as you see fit. So is this really something that's furthering affordable housing? I'm sorry, but I don't see it as doing this. I see this as doing something to comply with HCD. So if they feel that this is an impediment to certification, we go ahead and do it. Is it going to have any impact on affordable housing generation in the city? I don't see it as being a critical issue. You know, you still have the general plan and the standards in the specific plan.
Yeah, and so the consequence then is that we don't get that approved if we don't make these changes. They rescind this? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the design permit process, as proposed, would remove subjectivity that the council hasn't adopted. So with respect to the Broadway plan, that of course has been adopted by the council, there are standards in there. And so there's a couple of things. One, we could look more closely at projects to see how maybe authentically they fulfill the standards in the plan, or the plan itself could be looked at to see if there are ways of improving it, to tighten up on standards, maybe add some new ones. Another wrinkle that I think you're speaking towards is there's a state law that says that when a project has affordable housing, you can only apply objective design standards. I've been to enough conferences and things where I don't feel it's ever been fully defined what's objective, but because it seems to me the standards we have are pretty objective. But there's a sort of a state of the art of this. It is something that is on the list of things to do. It's one of those 70 implementation measures. So with respect to affordable housing, I think there's further work we can do and need to do to tighten up on architectural standards. But we could still take a look at the ones we have for everything else, whether it's commercial or market rate housing, and see if we're still happy with it or if it could be refined further. But then it'd be adopted by the council and no longer subjective.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of subjectivity in trying to eliminate subjectivity. You know, it doesn't go away. I think the things that's impressed me, well, we have met the housing requirements, more than met that. So that's what HCD is really about. But I think we've had a number of projects come forward that we've intervened to get something that represents more what we want it to look like. You know, I think the earlier one I remember was the lodge over here. What color are we going to paint it? Well, Buzz Butler's thought was, well, what are the colors of the mountain behind us throughout the year? It's not a flat roof. It kind of undulates a bit. Well, the mountain behind follows that pattern. We had one for Village at Vintage Ranch, which was some sort of a Mediterranean architectural thing that just went, well, you know, that really doesn't fit in with what's across the street. So I think what we've looked at is trying to make things subjectively fit more with the neighbors. It's complementary or at least enhance, give something of more value in terms of appearance on it. And I hope we adhere to that model in terms of subjectivity. And I think I think you hit the nail on the head with that, what HCD is looking for. Are you building the affordable housing? Are you building the workforce housing? Yes, we are. I think, well, I recall one meeting, we were about 150% of what our requirement is, one of 6 cities in the entire 101 in the Bay Area. So good job done here.
That's right.
Thank you.
And Mayor, what I've learned in this balance between objective design standards is the concern is cities saying you need to completely redesign the building structures. And what happened with the Village of Vintage Ranch is it went from a Mediterranean architecture to a different one, but it didn't rebuild the structures.
No.
It changed the colors and materials on the outside and some of the roof pitches, but those are relatively inexpensive changes, not something that would cause a lot of expense to a project and perhaps make it infeasible.
Yeah, and I think that's the strategy with these cities that don't want to build it, because we can make it more expensive than the developers out. Yeah. Councilmember Joseph.
Yes, well, thank you. And I agree with Vice Mayor Oro's comments. And I get the rationale. Yes, subjective values can lead to redlining and all the other problems. The flip side, of course, is those same subjective values might lead to a much better looking community, which we're all striving for. So I guess I embrace the idea that subjectivity is not inherently wrong or bad unless your intentions are bad. But philosophical soapboxes aside, what I'm hearing you say, and our city attorney and reading the package, we've got to come up with objective standards. And that somehow those standards have to be different from what we're doing now, because one of the complaints I'm getting is that all the new structures that are being built certainly are fitting our standards, I'm guessing, but they're not going to win any awards. I think somewhere in the process we lost sight of what we're really trying to accomplish, which is to make this community visually appealing as well as a great community. And so what I'm thinking is a solution to all of this, because my first reaction was to say, screw you, I don't want to approve this. But then I realized we got to do it to get the housing element. So we'll go ahead and approve it. But I do think this council needs to have some workshops, particularly focused on the Broadway District specific plan, and revisit the guidelines and standards. Because looking back over that process, I think we got really, we spent a lot of time going through the EIR process and the litigation and all that. I really don't know if we spent as much time visualizing what these standards were. And I think a workshop in which we're just talking about the architectural treatments and articulations and all the other things that I don't really understand that much about, but I know are important, I do think this council will be able to formulate a better understanding of what we want those standards to be. And if we included the Planning Commission in that workshop, then they would hear what our standards and values are. And then they, I think, would do a much better job, because they'd be able to say, well, I know this is what the council's looking for, so I'm on it. So I'm okay with this language as much as it offends me, but I do think going forward we've got to do something about those objective standards so that we're complying with, we only focus on standards, but make sure those standards are tough. Or that they reflect as high a quality as possible, and begin to understand that just because I don't think it would cost that much more to put, in the case of Village at Vintage Ranch, the changes that improve the overall appearance were not cost prohibitive. And so a lot of architectural improvements can be very attractive and not necessarily expensive.
Yes.
The Lodge, for example, it helped that the developer, Buzz Butler, was officially an architecture student before he became a developer. So it's always handy when the developer is looking at it aesthetically. But when you don't have that, I think it's up to us to articulate those standards and understand it and drill down. So I'd like to see that on our work list. Maybe it could be the 72nd or the 71st project. Add one more to the list. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Holly, your light was on briefly, but.
No, Mayor, thank you.
Okay. All right, very good. Council ready for public comment?
Yes, sir.
Public comment on this matter is now open. You got any cards?
I have no speaker cards.
Okay. Anybody online?
I have no hands raised online.
Okay. Last call for public comment. Seeing none, public comment in this matter is closed. Okay. opening up my agenda here, excuse me. So we got ordinance, action desired by council or needed by council is, we have an ordinance.
If there's no other questions from my colleagues, I'd like to make a motion for ordinance number 2024 next in order. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of American Canyon, amending American Canyon Municipal Code, Chapter 19.41, design permits, consistent with state law and housing element implementation program, C as in Charles.
I'll second.
Motion second, roll call, please.
Councilmember Joseph?
Yes.
Councilmember Washington?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Oro?
Yes.
Mayor Garcia?
Yes, thank you, council.
Thank you, Brent.
Next item 19, public hearing for citywide LLAD fiscal year 2024-25.
Good evening, Mayor, council
Evening.
members, community. Erica Almond-Smithies, Public Works Director. Here to discuss the adopting a resolution approving the fiscal year 24-25 annual engineers report for the American Canyon Landscaping and Lighting Assessment District, approving the budgets within the engineers report, confirming the assessment diagram and the annual assessment amounts, and authorizing the levy and collection of annual assessments for fiscal year 24-25. As we set the public hearing up 2 weeks ago, earlier this month, there have been no changes other than we're asking or requesting to levy a 6% increase, which is above the CPI of 3.67 for zones 1 and zone 2 to take care of rising costs and not actually hit them with the higher rate using some of our reserve funding within those accounts. And also providing the general fund input for at least Shenandoah Park, which is approximately $30,000. Zone 3, we're not recommending any increases. It has enough substantial reserves, and so we're staying the status quo for the amount levied per assessment district. And that will also take care of the Main Street Park improvements plan for the capital year, which includes the new ADA improvements and the improved sound system. So with that, I request you to open the public hearing or discussion amongst yourselves.
Discussion, council? If not, are you ready for a public hearing?
Yes, sir.
I do have Rick Clark with Harrison Associates who helped us put together the report. If we have other questions of him or members of the public, sorry about that.
Public hearing is open.
Covered everything last time, so this is.
Anybody from the public wanting to comment on this matter?
I have no cards and no hands raised online.
Okay. Last call for public hearing. Seeing none, public hearing on this matter is closed. We'll return to council for further discussion.
Yeah, if there's no further discussion, I think we talked about it last time. I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 2024 next in order. A resolution of the City Council of the City of American Canyon approving the 2024-25 annual engineering report for the American Canyon Landscaping and Lighting Assessment District, approving the budgets within the engineer's report, confirming the assessment diagram and the annual assessment amounts, and authorizing the levy and collection of annual assessments for fiscal year 2024 and 25.
I'll second.
Motion and second, roll call, please.
Councilmember Joseph?
Yes.
Councilmember Washington?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Oro?
Yes.
Mayor Garcia?
Yes, thank you, council. Moving on now to business item 20, American Canyon Wetlands Restoration Plan.
Good evening again. Tonight, we're here to share the final product of the American Canyon Wetlands Restoration Plan. We came to you in February of 2022 with the Board of Contract, ESA, which is here tonight to present. I have Michelle Orr and Katie Dudney to here kick off the PowerPoint. But I want to take a special thank you, say a thank you to the Technical Advisory Commission. Though it was a requirement of the grant, it also brought really input from not just local community members here within the city, but also regional partners and regulators. We had American Canyon Community Parks Foundation, Janelle Selleck helping us out with the Technical Advisory Committee. We also had Barry Christian as a member or the chair of the Napa County Open Space District. Napa County Flood Control and Water Conservation District also assisted, as well as Napa County RCD, Resources Conservation District, California Fish and Wildlife, the State Water Board, and the San Francisco Bay Estuary. So it was a nice grounded group. Not everyone could make every the Technical Advisory Committee meetings. We had about 6. They even helped provide input during the solicitation for the consultant that we brought on board. And then we had all the webinars. The last 2 years, we had a couple of webinars, community outreach events, and just really appreciate the feedback we got to provide this event tonight to present to you the final plan so that we can move forward with implementation of projects. So with that, I'll let Michelle, if they're on, or Katie take lead. Do you see them on there raising their hands?
Oh, I've got it confused me a minute because you've got the presentation up there, but
Okay.
they're going to actually.
Yes. I was back up in case the Zoom was not working.
Michelle and Katie, you both are online whenever you're ready.
Uh-oh.
Hello?
There you are.
All right, I am on.
Good evening. We can hear you.
Hello, good evening. Thank you, Erica, for that introduction. I'm going to try to pull up our slides. All right, are you able to see the slides now?
Yes, we can.
And can you see the single slide or the notes slide?
Notes.
Okay.
There you are.
Okay, ready? Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, well, again,
Better.
thank you for having us, and I know it's a late night, so we'll try to go quickly, but I know you've heard some of this background before. And we'll start with a little bit of background about the project and our goals, and then give you the final plan as it's presented tonight for adoption, and then talk a little bit about the next steps that the city has in front of you. So Erica already provided a nice introduction to our Technical Advisory Committee. We just wanted to acknowledge and thank all of those who could have helped in participating and shaping this project. And just background of why this was done, there were a number of elements we were hoping to address as part of the project, namely safety concerns associated with undersized culverts and public access in the area. We also wanted to improve habitat conditions and hydrology, improve the public access, reduce maintenance obligations for the city that was being caused by erosion and flooding, and protect the infrastructure that the city has from sea level rise in the future. So with this, we developed project goals, really around the idea of restoring and enhancing a mix of wetland habitats and providing nature-oriented public recreation and access in association with the educational opportunities that are being proposed for the Napa River Ecology Center at American Canyon. The scope of work was to evaluate feasibility of conducting these improvements. It was really focused on 2 primary areas. One, so the American Canyon wetlands are just on the western side of the city. So one area we were focusing on is at the north end, called the North Slough Pond area. This is near the existing wastewater treatment plant. And there's the Bay Trail loop that goes around this area. It's highly used by recreational users. And then the Corporation Yard location, which is currently used as maintenance facilities, and the former wastewater treatment plant location, which is currently being proposed for Eco Center. So along with those feasibility studies, we looked at potential impacts to cultural resources and biological resources that could be present in the area. We also looked at potential hazardous materials that could be legacy on site, as well as existing hydrologic conditions and biological conditions that could affect project design and permitting going forward. And these were all used to inform what could be feasible in the designs that we proposed. This work was started about 2 years ago in the beginning of 2022. And as Erica mentioned, we had a number of meetings with our technical advisory committee. There were also 2 public meetings where we presented this to the public, one in October of 2022, and then again in November of 2023, which was in conjunction with one of the OSATs meeting. We then went back to the OSATs at the beginning of May and presented the final plan with updates based on changes that had made since the last community meeting in November. We also included one meeting with the Bay Restoration Regulatory Integration Team, or the BRIT. These are the regulatory agencies that would be responsible for permitting any projects associated in this area, and got their early input on the draft restoration plan as well. So with all of that, we're taking that feedback. We developed a final plan that we're looking for adoption tonight. So here's an overview of the final plan. I'm going to focus on 3 areas. One, the North Slough Pond area, and then in between the North Slough Pond and the Corporation Yard area, there's an area where we're proposing invasive weed removal, and then the Corporation Yard at the south end. And then again, as mentioned briefly, habitat restoration and enhancement actions, trail improvement actions, and a new kayak launch are proposed at these locations. So in the North Slough Pond area, the primary enhancement here would be to replace 2 undersized culverts that are currently restricting flow. This is causing habitat impacts as well as erosion, and it limits opportunities for wildlife to cross, and also creates a safety hazard for dogs and people that could be in the area as fast flows flow through these culverts. So the idea here is to replace these 2 culverts with an open box culvert or free span bridge that would increase the tidal circulation and the hydrology, improve water quality, slow velocities, and improve safety in this location. As a result of that hydrologic connection improvement, there would be an expansion of tidal marsh habitat, and we have modeled that there would be about 2 additional acres of wetland habitat that would naturally be created as a result of the increased tidal prism. And we would also see some increased open water habitat associated with where those culverts were replaced by a more open bottom natural channel. And so those would also serve as habitat benefits in that area, and there would be some restoration around the margins where this work was conducted, where the construction was done. In addition, there's proposed trail improvements. The primary trail improvement is along the north and eastern side of the pond, where the trail is proposed to be raised. And this would be to protect the inland areas from sea level rise and make the trail resilient into the future for the next 50 years. In addition, we looked at and evaluated raising the trail to the south and western side. This would create a loop that would maintain with sea level rise. The project has been split into a couple of different ways in the evaluation, so that depending on funding, the city could implement, a portion of this at a time as needed. But the evaluation considers raising both the west side and the east side as a way to create a loop in this area. The plan also includes for some invasive plant removal along the shoreline. This is proposed as a way to provide additional enhancement to help offset impacts And as a community benefit, the city is already conducting some of this work, and it's a way to involve the education center and the community in plant restoration and invasive species removal and habitat enhancement. At the corporation yard, one of the key features is the kayak launch. So proposed in this location is a spur trail that would go from the eco center out through the marsh and culminate in a turnaround area. This could be used for congregating groups or to drive vehicles out for kayak drop-off or accessibility. People could drive this location. And then there would be a gangway and platform for a kayak launch that would be in North Slough, and this connects out into the Napa River. The areas that you see in yellow here is an elevated trail that would be resilient to sea level rise. And then there's a loop trail proposed that would be resurfaced that would provide public access around this overflow pond loop. It would provide visual screening and protection, fencing from the overflow pond, and allow recreational users to have access to the marshlands. In green, you'll see areas that are proposed for restoration. These provide additional wetlands and transitional habitat up into uplands that serves to offset the impacts associated with the kayak launch, as well as providing species benefits. Here's an example of what the kayak launch could look like. This is the location on North Slough where it's proposed. And then up in the upper right is an example of a gangway location at another area along the Bay Water Trail, and an example of a handicap accessible launch site that would be similar to our dock design. One thing that would be different that the regulatory agencies proposed is having the dock have either transparent surfacing or grading to allow light penetration and reduce fisheries impacts. This kayak launch would close a gap in the Bay Water Trail. There's currently about a 11-mile stretch without a launch, and this is about halfway in the middle, so there'd be about 5.5 miles between kayak launches on the Napa River. This design was also considered with the idea of having a phase 2 for the corporation yard, should in the future the city be able to relocate the overflow pond that's currently used for sewage overflow and storm events. If that could be relocated, this area could be restored to tidal marsh, and that plan would be consistent with the designs that they're currently proposed for phase 1. The designs also include some picnic areas and some signage, in addition to some wetland swale habitat. So in summary, for the design, the habitat restoration and enhancements exceed the impacts of the project. We're looking at restoring and enhancing about 60 acres of tidal and wetland habitats, and there would be 3 acres of temporary impacts associated with construction, as well as about 2 acres of permanent impacts. Those impacts are associated with the kayak launch itself, and then in the process of elevating the trails for sea level rise, they need to be made a little wider. And that with expansion goes into the wetlands and causes some permanent impacts. The trail improvements would consist of about 1.2 miles of bay trail improvements, and then the loop around the corporation yard and the spur trail out to the kayak launch adds about an additional 0.5 mile of new public access that's not currently accessible to the public. Again, this would fill a gap in the water trail with the new kayak launch, and the construction impacts have been minimized to the extent feasible in consultation with the regulatory agencies. So that's the plan as presented. There are some appendices in the document that help drive the next steps, one of which is the cost estimates. Everyone wants to know how much these will cost. This is based largely on the amount of fill that is needed and the cost of that fill, with some assumptions on how cheaply it can be obtained. So the low end cost for everything that has been discussed is about $8 million and the high end about 13. But we've broken it out into components so that the city can get pieces funded over time as needed. So in particular, I know that the North Slough Pond culvert replacement is a high priority project just because of the safety elements and the habitat improvement benefits. And there's a lot of interest in the kayak launch as well. So you can see each of those as just over $1 million. And those might be more accessible to get grant funding for completing those smaller projects. This is also an example of a timeline, not something the city needs to do, but we've identified a number of grants that the city could be eligible for. First one starting this July with the San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority. This is the funding agency that funded this portion of the study for the conceptual design, and the city may be able to get additional funding for design and permitting the next steps of the project. There's additional funding that could be available through the EPA or CDFW or the Wildlife Conservation Board. And there's also some funding available for the Department of Boating and Waterways, which specifically funds kayak launches. So that might be an opportunity to fund the kayak launch as proposed. And assuming that funding can be obtained, here's a potential timeline for implementation. We are now in the spring and we're proposing the restoration plan. The city could secure funding through the end of this year and begin the design and permitting in 2025 with the idea that the project could go to construction in 2026. So we think this is a reasonable, realistic schedule and look forward to seeing what's next for the project and for the city. So with that, we'll turn it over to questions that you might have.
Questions from council? Thank you for the presentation. That is really something to look forward to. I know there's a lot of energy in American Canyon behind it, and certainly something like a kayak launch would be a great opportunity here for recreation, and I think has some economic benefit as well. Councilmember Joseph.
Yes, yes, I agree. This is an exciting project. And speaking on behalf of Barry Christian, he and I had chatted years ago about how we've got to get rid of that culvert at the North Slough, how we've got to have a kayak launch. So he should be a happy camper right now. But one of my questions, about the only technical question I have, is we're raising a lot of the trails to avoid sea level rise, but the little spur that goes down to Glass Beach apparently isn't being treated. So my question is, why aren't we? And B, if we don't, what happens with sea level rise? In 30 to 40 years, am I gonna not be able to get out there? And the answer is yes, regardless of sea level rise, but you know, it's rhetorical.
Yeah, the short answer is, you know, we did look at raising that. There are a lot of impacts associated with that as well as costs. Michelle is our engineer for this project. And so, Michelle, if you want to add anything in particular about that, please do.
Yes, we did, as Katie mentioned, we did look at raising that part of the trail. I know there's interest in that. There were a couple issues there. The land ownership by CDFW was one of the issues that is not on city property. But perhaps the larger issue is that in order to raise that trail, you would need to impact some higher quality existing habitat, and that is not likely to be viewed favorably by the permitting agencies.
Okay, so the second half, with sea level rise, what happens to the trail?
With sea level rise, the trail will be less accessible. You know, more and more over time, there'll be water over the trail. Like you already see on some other parts of the trail. The intent here is to raise the other parts of the trail so that the trail use can still continue, but it'll be set back somewhat from the shoreline. So there'll be the loop trail around the North Pond and also improvements to the Bay Trail spine to the north and east of that North Pond. And that's a very common approach to providing sea level rise adaptation on public trails, is to set them progressively further landward so that they'll be more sustainable.
Okay. All right, well, that's kind of a disappointing trade-off, but I understand the rationale. The other one is a comment. I'm on the BCDC Bay Adapt Task Force for Electeds. And so I bring that up only because I know there's legislation out there that requires us to have a sea level rise adaptation plan, and that there's monies out there and all that good stuff. And so I raise it to say, is there anybody in the system that's tracking that and ready to take advantage of the grant for planning purposes or, you know, implementation? And if not, is there anybody I can transfer whatever information and contacts I have to them? I think it's SB 272, if I have good memory about Senate bills.
Yes. Yes, so SB 272 is the relatively new legislation that incentivizes local municipalities and others to create sea level rise adaptation plans for their part of the shoreline. The approach that we've taken for this part of the shoreline is expected to be consistent with any kind of larger sea level rise adaptation planning effort that may be done in the future. And my firm and me personally am working on the updates to that sea level rise adaptation guidance with BCDC.
Okay.
And we recognize that some plans get out in front of the guidance being developed because that guidance is being developed only now. But we've tried as much as possible to be consistent with where we see the guidance going. And we also understand that BCDC is going to be generous in their interpretation of work that was done prior to the official guidance. So I guess that's just a long way of saying that I think this will be consistent and viewed favorably by the agencies and for funding.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Any other council comment? No, sir. Council ready for public comment?
Yes, sir.
Public comment on this matter is now open. You may have some comments.
Sure.
Certainly.
Everyone, Chanel Selleck, Executive Director of the American Canyon Community Parks Foundation. So I was lucky enough to be able to serve on the TAC along with Barry Christian and some of the other folks that Erica mentioned. It was a very interesting process, and I want to give a lot of credit to ESA, all the city staff that were involved, and council for getting this grant going a couple years ago. A couple weeks ago, I was at an event for Friends of the Napa River, celebrating the success that they've had in downtown Napa with the river restoration project. And it's really interesting to hear about the history, how it all started, and see the economic and recreational benefits that have come forward out of that project. So it takes a lot of vision. You know, that project was envisioned, I think, over 20 years ago. So here in American Canyon, I think it's really interesting to see the extension of it happening down here. There's a lot of enthusiasm up valley and a lot of appreciation and recognition of the wetlands restoration work that's happening down here, both as, I guess, as an extension of some of the, like the salt ponds restoration work that has already happened. So all in all, continues to amaze me how the river really connects the valley, and I just applaud the city for their kind of visionary work in this process. So we're excited to be a part of it for sure. Oh, and I've seen 2 people trying to haul their kayaks out to Glass Beach from the parking lot. Doesn't go over so well.
That's a very long haul. Hopefully there's wheels underneath those kayaks. I hope it makes it rolling easier. Another speaker?
I have no speakers online, Mayor.
Okay. Anybody else in the audience wishing to speak, comment? Seeing none, then public comment is now closed. We'll return to council for further discussion?
May I interject first? I missed some acknowledgements. I didn't do this alone with ESA. I had Director Alexander Akeda with Parks and Recreation and Community Development Director Brent Cooper that helped with the project, as well as City Manager Hawley with some of the background and utility wastewater because of the knowledge at the overflow pond. So
All right.
I failed to acknowledge the staff that did assist me on this project. So.
Good to know that. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Mayor, if there's no other comments, I would be happy to make a motion to approve Resolution 2024 next in order, a resolution of the City Council of the City of American Canyon adopting the City of American Canyon Wetlands Restoration Plan.
I'll second it.
Motion second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Joseph?
Yes.
Councilmember Washington?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Oro?
Yes.
Mayor Garcia?
Yes. Thank you. Moving on to item number 21, next one, corporate yard relocation. I think we got a big blueprint here, don't
It's a Director Smithy's show.
Yes, sir. No, the big show's at the end of my presentation. That's the finance director, Juan Gomez. Good evening again. You should have on the dais an updated exhibit. There was one attached to the map, and then literally yesterday morning we got an updated version of the courtyard revisioning. Yes, we're coming here tonight for an increase in the budget appropriation from $700,000 to $1,780,000. As you're aware, the original envision was a lot of sweat equity and repurposing a lot of buildings and what we had out there. Part of the funding went towards delivering the community center for programming last year for the recreation and ongoing programming, the multi-purpose room and also the nonprofits using some of the old classrooms. We're looking at now trying to physically relocate the entire corporation yard. And we're moving from a large site at Wetlands Edge into a smaller site, and we need to make sure that it's a challenge site. The current site is multi-tiered. Some of you were there today and saw that we're knocking, our public works superintendent, it was a one-man show out there today, taking down some of the old facilities from the schoolyard that will now become the future corporation yard. But we needed some additional site planning, so we engaged with Riker Spence and Associate RSA Plus this last fall to help us with that master plan on a very what do you call it, a penny budget, so we could spread the wealth actually doing an implementation. They gave us a site plan. We gave them a list of all the items we need to relocate from the courtyard. We're going from a historic courtyard to now something that we got to bring to today's standards, stormwater, covered material storage, covered solid waste storage, new shops, relocating the storage containers that we're still using. And instead of having different staff members at different buildings on site, we want to put them in one house. So the idea of a modular building located outside the earthquake zones, if you've seen the fault study map, it's a lot of lines throughout that entire property. So being able to demolish one of the library structure that's out there towards the south end of Napa Junction, to put in a 40 by 60 modular trailer. We're actually got a refurbished one in mind for a fraction of the cost of a brand new one that could be here potentially by the end of this summer. So that's why we're coming to you tonight, because there's a lot of work in tow. We have KOPCA now, so we've been getting bids and quotes on items that we can't do ourselves. We have a two-man show right now doing remodeling and restoration with help with mechanical staff and other street staff. But if we want them to keep doing work at other sites, we're going to need some help from outsiders to get us out of there by the end of December, at least physically relocated to this facility, allow the Napa Ecology Center to start and making improvements and at the old Wetlands Edge site, and then be almost out of there completely by next fiscal year, so they can continue their restoration efforts at the old courtyard. So we think this is the budget we can deliver it with. We gave you a nice list of all the items that we're thinking about that need to be moved and improved upon. About the biggest ticket items we have quotes on or bids from contractors. And example, the modular, we have purchase orders ready to go upon approval tonight. Or we won't be out of there by the end of the year if we don't get more appropriations, because we need the funding to deliver. So, and it's not general fund. We're using impact fee fund and portion of ARPA that's remaining that needs to be contracted with by the end of this year. So with that, I'll let you discuss amongst yourself, or if you have questions. I do have Public Works Superintendent Brian Matern, who's been doing a lot of the work out there with our building facility staff member, Billy Dodson. It's been we're still doing a lot of sweat equity. We're moving old vaults, we're pulling old electrical lines, and we're just really trying to still do the sweat equity part of it while realizing we need help. So,
Well, very good. I was had an opportunity to do a little tour out there with Mr. Hawley before the luncheon today. A lot of activity out there. I just think it's a great opportunity that we have seized upon to expand our corporate yard and bring more of it together in one location, which is a very good thing. It's great to have that space, and I know there's a lot of sweat equity going to be put into that. Somebody was driving a skip loader, moving some earth and things over there today too. There he goes, right there. You're going to have a lot of work on your hands, but that's going to be a good job. So thank you for that. Councilmember Joseph, comment?
Yes, it's an exciting plan. It's always fun to see, the pieces coming together. One quick question: the Conex boxes are kind of facing Napa Junction Road. Is there enough space to landscape and basically screen as much as we can? Because sometimes Conex boxes aren't as attractive as you might think. So I'm a little concerned. I want to make it pretty. But other than that, I appreciate the idea that we're going in and doing it right. And probably we need to be able to identify a contingency fund just in case. So, but like I said, other than I'd like to see some landscape screening along there, or maybe leverage the Oat Hill apartment people to say, wouldn't you like your entrance to look pretty? We'll give you the site if you do the landscaping.
They are required to put some landscaping on the north side of Napa Junction, but I agree with concur with the needing to screen the Conex containers.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, if you needed extra appropriations, this is the best leverage with me. Just say, we'll get you that screening. It may be 50 grand, but what the heck?
Well, just sharing a thought, maybe there's an opportunity for the Arts Council to do a mural.
That's right. We'll paint
brighten that up.
something on the Conex boxes. So if you don't get landscaping, we will come out at night and vandalize them artistically.
Let's not encourage that part, okay? We'll get some legitimate artwork there. Okay. Any other comment from council?
No, sir.
No. Okay. Council ready for public comment?
Yes, sir.
Public comment on this matter is open.
I have no speaker cards and no hands raised online.
Okay. Last call for public comment. Seeing none, public comment. Oh, yes, go ahead.
Because it is affiliated with this project, I'll just let you know that while the city is working extremely hard to move Public Works out of the site, we're working equally as hard behind the scenes to be able to move into the site, the former corporation yard. Really look forward to it. Spinning all of our wheels on the back end to try and make sure that once we do move in, we'll be able to move forward with construction expeditiously. So thank you. Really enjoy working with all of the team as much as we do overlapping with these projects.
Very good. Thank you. Yeah, it takes that group effort to working together, get it done. Any other public comment? Public comment is now closed. We will return to council for further discussion and desired action.
If there's no further discussion, I will make a motion to adopt resolution number 2024, next in order, resolution of the City Council of the City of American Canyon, increasing the total project budget for the corporation yard relocation and facility upgrade project, CF 23-0300, from $700,000 to $1,780,000.
I'll second that.
Motion second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Joseph?
Yes.
Councilmember Washington?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Oro?
Yes.
Mayor Garcia?
Yes, thank you, council.
Thank you.
Moving on with our agenda, we're now on item 22, fiscal year 2024-25 proposed budget. The Finance Committee did meet and had a discussion on this earlier. And we're very pleased to see what the projections are.
All right, let me get started here. All right, good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, members of the public. I'm glad everybody's still here and I didn't lose anybody after the proclamations there. Juan Gomez, Finance Director, and I'm pleased today to present the fiscal year 2024-25 proposed budget. A lot of work goes through developing the budget. It kicks off in February. It's about a 3-month process, a lot of negotiations back and forth with departments. Not everybody gets what they want. It all costs money, and we have to figure out how to make it work, providing services, enhancements, et cetera. So I appreciate everybody's hard work throughout the departments, the department heads, their analysts, all the managers. I know we had a lot of tough conversations, but at the end, you'll see that I'm proposing a balanced budget for the general fund. So with that, also, the City Council will adopt the final budget adoption on June 4th after discussions. So this presentation here is for back and forth discussion, what we're proposing tonight and how we're balancing the budget and the 63 other funds that we have. So, and then we'll also adopt the fiscal year 25 through 29 CIP, which is the capital improvement program. That would be on June 4th. And then also we have our transparency portal and the final budget document, which after we finalize this meeting and the June 4th meeting, we'll get into developing the actual budget document. So with that, here's a little quote. It says, "A budget is telling your money where to go instead of wondering where it went." I know.
Well put.
I know when I was younger, I'd get paid on Friday, and on Monday, I wonder where it all went. But this is a good opportunity for the public, council, and city staff to understand where the money comes from and where the money goes. So this presentation, again, will kind of highlight some of those answers for you. So as we move forward, this is the general fund. General fund is the main operating fund of the city. We have, again, like I said, 63 funds, but the general fund really is the meat and potatoes of the city. That is where we have our administration, our public safety, our parks, finance department administration, legal, et cetera. So what we're proposing here is going to be a $31.6 million revenues and $31.6 million expenditures. So there is a tiny surplus of $30,000. Then that gets transferred out. The $30,000 gets transferred out to Vintage Ranch Lighting and Landscape Assessment District for the community benefit portion of Shenandoah Park. So at the end of the day, the surplus deficit is basically nothing, so it's balanced. Also, the general fund includes developer projects fund, which is projects that are happening throughout the city, and developers put deposits. So we classify those as revenues, and then as they have consultant work, engineering work, and so forth, we draw down on those balances, so then it's expense. So really that is a net zero at the end of the day in the long run. I know development projects take a long time, but that would be a net zero at the end of the day. So as we get into the revenues for the general fund, property taxes are going to be the largest revenue source for the city in the general fund. $14.7 million is what we're expecting in property tax revenue. $656,000 increase, or 4.66%. As I had mentioned in the past with this slide, the city of American Canyon gets 26 cents on the dollar. So imagine you pay your property tax, you pay $1, probably a lot more than that, obviously, but you pay $1 and 26% of that money goes to the city. The rest, as you can see, goes to the Napa Valley Unified School District, which gets the majority of that at 43 cents. American Canyon Fire Department gets about 13%. We have Napa County for health services, social services at 5 cents. So the way we came up with $656,000 increases, as you can see, if you look around town, there's a lot of construction. There's a lot of homes that are being built, and once people move into those homes, then they get put on the tax roll. So every January of every year, those houses that are transferred of ownership get recorded on the roll January of each year, and then the cities get the money. Included in property tax is also other things like unsecured people with boats, supplemental taxes, and VLF, which is a vehicle license fee. So we're expecting approximately $656,000 there. Sales tax revenue, $3.9 million. This is one not so bright spot. There's a decrease that we're proposing of over $500,000. So it's a decrease of 12.2%. What happened is we got notified in February of this year that a major taxpayer, a warehouse here in town, was leaving the city, and they were going to vacate that property. They are one of our largest taxpayers, and that's going to obviously impact this budget here that I'm proposing this year. They are proposing to cease operations in February of 2025. So we're still going to get some sales tax revenues in this budget that I'm proposing, because this budget starts July of 24 and it goes through June of 25. So if they're ceasing operations in February 25, we're still going to get some tax revenues. They're going to start slowing down operations, though, so incrementally we'll be receiving less and less every quarter. The biggest impact, obviously, is going to be next fiscal year 26, where we're going to experience a full year of that sales tax loss there. So as you remember, I've mentioned this before, of the 7.75% sales tax in the city gets 1% of that. So approximately 1/8 of the sales tax that you pay, you go to Walmart, you go to AutoZone or so forth, you pay sales tax. We get approximately 1/8 of those sales tax dollars. So again, it is important to shop local, and that's something that a lot of people preach in their towns. One, you're supporting the businesses, and two, you're bringing revenue back into the community. Transit occupancy tax, that is our hotel tax, so to speak. We're proposing a $2.1 million budget, an increase of $309,000 or 17%. Now, this is a picture of Home 2 Suites, as you can see across the highway there. They're building that a little slower than we had anticipated or wanted. But I'm projecting that hotel will be up and running in the fall of 2024, so I'm giving them some more leeway. I'm projecting that hotel will bring in approximately $300,000 to $320,000 a year. That is 102 rooms. The average room rate in the city is $153, and we currently have approximately a 75% occupancy, meaning of the rooms available to rent, 75% on a continuous basis are being rented out. So with that, it's a 12% TOT tax that's paid for by the guests, and the city receives 100%. So we saw the portion of property tax that we receive, we saw the portion of sales tax. The city does get 100% of the full 12% that is paid for. It's collected by the hotels and is then transferred over to the city. So we are proposing a $2.1 million budget there. Other general fund revenues, permits and fees, $6.1 million, an increase of $315,000. And that includes franchise fees, licenses and permits, which are building permit fees, investment earnings, and miscellaneous revenues. Now, franchise fees are increasing approximately 3.5%. We're going to continue to see those increase in the future, because as more people come in, more buildings are erected. They're going to need electric service, gas service, cable service, solid waste service, et cetera. And those are all those services and all those companies that provide those services provide us with a franchise fee. Also, licensing and permit fees up 5.6%. Again, that's due to the building activity in town. Investment earnings are up 80%. You can see out there the mortgage rates and the interest rates that are out there. They're really high compared to the last 10, 15 years, not by historical standards of the 70s and 80s, obviously, but recently our money that we invest in LAIF, in corporate bonds, in PFM asset management, they're earning substantially more because we're getting an average of about 5% interest. Now, when the city invests in investments, we don't invest in equities and stocks. We don't invest in derivatives or futures or any crypto or any risk. It's very safe investments. The number one principle of investments is safety, followed by liquidity, followed by yield. So our number one priority is safety. So at a 5%, basically risk-free investment, that's a good return. Miscellaneous revenues, $515,000. That is our reimbursement that we get for a school resource officer from Napa Valley Unified School District. We get some money for providing a city employee to the fire district, and also some microfilms fees. Oh, go back here. Transfers in $4.8 million, an increase of $1.3 million. We're projecting a $3.5 million revenue budget for support services. We're increasing it 46%. Now that's pretty high. What support services is the services that the general fund provides to the water, wastewater, and recycled water. So they don't have their own city manager or finance director or human resources. So we have to provide those. The general fund has to provide those services to these enterprise funds. The reason it's increasing this much is because when we did some analysis, we found out that the city manager's office, the city clerk, the city council's division were not being charged to those funds. So they don't have their own board, they don't have their own general manager again. So what we're doing is recouping more of that time. The city clerks, the city managers, the city attorneys, we're recouping those costs, so it's increasing there. And then gas tax, we're bringing in $400,000. We used to bring in $300,000 for gas tax. We're now bringing in $400,000. That is the money that's received when you go to the gas station, you pay gas tax. We use that money in turn to maintain our streets and sidewalks. It's been $300,000 for many, many, many years. We thought with inflation and the cost of materials and so forth, it was time to up that. And charges for services, $1.9 million, so decrease of $213,000. Recreational services are going to bring in $385,000, a slight decrease of 4.6%. Plan check fees of $350,000, a slight decrease of 6%. Plan check fees in building plan check fees and building permits are a cycle, right? We first get the plan check fees, we pay for them, and then they start taking out the permit fees. So we're kind of in that phase where we have a lot of projects that have already taken out, that are already submitted plans. We've checked them. They're ready for construction. Now they're taking out the permits, and now they're starting the construction. Developer reimbursements, $1.1 million. Again, this is an in and out. This is just going to be money coming in for developers paying for certain services that they're responsible for, engineering, consulting, architecture, and so forth. So as we look at this graph, this is the total revenues for the general fund, $31.6 million. You can see that the largest contributor is again going to be property tax at 47%, sales tax at 12%, TOT at 7%. Now, what's nice about having property tax at 47% is that it's a stable revenue source. As you remember, during COVID, everybody was on lockdown, nobody was traveling. When you have nobody traveling, nobody staying at a hotel, you lose those revenues. When you have people not shopping, not a lot of discretionary shopping, you lose that revenue too. So a lot of agencies saw those revenues come down considerably. But property tax continued to go up because a lot of people were moving out of San Francisco and coming out to the suburbs and increasing the prices, transfer of ownership. So we were getting these increases in property tax. But that's a stable revenue source. So it's good to have a high percentage there. Something that the council had wanted to look at was how do we compare with other agencies? So as you can see here, the city of American Canyon here, down below here, gets 13. This was actually based on last year because that's the most recent budget for all the agencies. But we had $13.3 million in property tax revenue. We were getting about approximately 46%. If you look at Napa, Napa gets about 35% of their revenue from property tax. I'll skip Benicia for a minute. Martinez gets about 43%. Yountville gets 8%. But you can see Yountville, 30% of their revenue comes from TOT, hotels. Sassoon gets about 7% from property tax. St. Helena gets 35. St. Helena is pretty well balanced, 35, 33, and 20. And then Calistoga, 12%, but Calistoga relies heavily on those TOTs, 63% of their general fund budget. Imagine what happened during COVID when nobody was traveling, those hotels were kind of shut down. It was a big hit to those agencies. Benicia, my spreadsheet, kind of calculated some wrong numbers. They don't have an $87 million budget. They have I have it here, I think it was like $45 million. So about 23% of their revenue actually comes from property tax. Actually, that is correct, 24% there. Sales tax, just quickly highlight, sales tax, we get approximately 15% in sales tax. You can see everybody kind of hoovers around 15, 18%. Yountville has really low sales tax. St. Helena gets 33% of their revenues in sales tax, and Benicia actually does get 18%. So Benicia and St. Helena have sales tax measures. So as I showed you in the other slide where we get 1% of that 7.75, those two other agencies have actually added an additional sales tax measure. So then not only are they getting that 1%, they're actually getting that, I believe it's a half-cent sales tax. So that's essentially 1.5 times their revenue there. All right, so we'll jump on the other side, general fund expenditures. Salaries are projected at $7 million. That's 22% of the general fund. That's a 10% increase, or $652,000 from last fiscal year. We have a memorandum of understandings with our union groups, and they had a 3.8% projected increase this coming fiscal year, and the step increases and that CPI are actually contributing to $470,000 of that $652,000. The rest is the new positions. Now, I'll talk about the new positions, what we're proposing in this budget. One is going to be a management analyst in public works. This is based on a recent Baker Tilly study. Now, the general fund is actually going to contribute approximately 20% to this management analyst. The rest is going to be borne by the water, sewer, recycled water, and the fleet enterprise funds. So the general fund here, in this case, for this position, is paying 20%. The capital programs coordinator in public works engineering, that's going to be 100% funded by capital projects. And when I talk about capital projects, it's working, whether they're working on a water or sewer capital project, or if they're working on a streets project. As you'll see in other slides, those are actually funded by special revenues or enterprise funds. They're not funded by the general fund. So the capital programs coordinator is going to be funded 100% outside of the, I'm sorry, we have 10% in the general fund. My apologies. We do have, because there is some administrative work that they will be doing in the general fund. So 10% of that position is general fund. And then we'll have 3 seasonal maintenance workers. We have projected 2 in parks and 1 in streets, and that is essentially to help boots on the ground, so to speak, to help during those peak summer times or fall times, and help out the folks that we have out in the field with an as-needed basis. Now, the thing with that is that we still have current vacancies. We're proposing some seasonal workers, but we still have 2 vacant maintenance workers. So as we ramp up those recruitments and we bring in those folks, we're looking at approximately 5 bodies that we don't have right now. So we'll have 5 additional bodies that we'll bring in there. An HR analyst is still vacant. We have 1 police technician. We recently hired 1. We have 1 police technician that's still vacant. And then we also have an administrative clerk in the Parks and Rec department. So those are kind of the highlights of the personnel positions right now. Associated with salaries are benefits. We got to pay our employees benefits and medical, dental, and retirement and so forth. So 11% of the general fund approximately is benefits, or $3.5 million. It's a 17% increase, $511,000. Now, again, with not only with the normal inflation that we see on gas prices and food and materials and so forth, I mean, health insurance has been increasing for many, many years now. It's getting expensive. We're seeing 8, 9, 10% increases in healthcare. This year, we're projecting approximately an 8% increase in healthcare. Workers' comp, again, gets more expensive. Insurance, house insurance, car insurance, liability insurance, workers' comp insurance, that's all increasing again. Pension and OPEB, $187,000 increase for pension and $164,000 for OPEB. OPEB is other post-employment benefits. We offer our employees retiree health care for those employees that have been hired before a certain time. The driver behind these increases is that the stock market in calendar year 2022 wasn't that great. So we had that dip. So we're in about a 2-year lag from when we have to, when we get the reports from CalPERS. So they didn't meet their required investment return of 7% at that time. It's now, the discount rate is now 6.8, but at that time it was 7%, and they didn't meet that. So what happens is if they don't meet that investment return, they add an unfunded liability. It's a line item that they add to our report, which is called an unfunded liability, a line item, and now our unfunded liability goes up, which means we now have to pay an additional amount of money in order to pay for that portion. It's nerve-wracking. There's a lot of numbers in there. But that's CalPERS is a fiduciary, so CalPERS doesn't necessarily pay. We don't send them the money and then they say, okay, we'll take care of it, don't worry. They say, if we don't have any money, we're gonna come back to you so that we can pay your employees. So, other expenses in the general fund that total $31.6 million. Police services, $9.4 million. It's an increase of approximately 10%. The police chief last time mentioned the contract. There's no additional staff in fiscal year 24-25. What we do have here, however, is a full year's cost for a motor sergeant. Last year in fiscal year 24, we started the motor sergeant in January, so it was only half a year. This current budget now includes a full year costs. It also includes insurance increases. It has, as I mentioned before, insurance increases, liability, general liability for police departments is getting very expensive. They pass those costs on to us too, as them providing those services. Salary increases, again, they have union employees, they have contracts with their employees. We're seeing those increases there again, so $9.4 million. Supplies and services, $8.6 million, an increase of $112,000. Now this is one line item that we've actually kept pretty stable. This is something that we have a little bit more control of. You can see insurance costs are increasing $225,000. This is going to be a recurring theme here with insurance and liabilities and so forth. But if I take those insurance costs out and I take out those contract services, we've actually decreased our need for supplies and services. Various factors in finance, for example, we had a CPA firm that was helping us while we were short-staffed last fiscal year. We now have an accountant on staff that's helping us. We don't need the services of that CPA firm as much anymore. But contract building services up $234,000. That is essentially recouped on the permit revenue side. So the contract for building services takes a percentage of the building fees that we collect. So for them to go out there and do an inspection, they'll take a portion of that or a percentage of that revenue. Internal service charges, $2.3 million, an increase of 7.5%. As you know, we are in an enterprise fleet leasing, so we're bringing in more vehicles as we're turning those over. A lot of our older vehicles are being retired, and we're bringing in new vehicles. So essentially what we're doing is we're retiring vehicles that have already been paid off. They need a lot of maintenance. They're not as reliable, but they're paid off. We don't owe anything. So now we're entering into leases, into 5-year leases with vehicles, which is driving up our costs a little bit. We are also outfitting 3 police interceptors. They cost $30,000 to $33,000 for each police interceptor to put in a roll cage, lights, bars, bumpers, et cetera. So those get expensive. And then also new IT software. Finance has a new software new ERP system, Enterprise Resource. It's on the cloud. We don't have to pay for servers, but now it's on the cloud. It's a little bit more expensive. We have to pay for them to maintain it. We also have a consultant, DNI, that provides hardware as a service. There's increases also associated with that contract. So this is the flip side of that other chart. This is $31.6 million in expenditures. You can see the sheriff's contract at 29%, $9.4 million, salaries at 22%, supplies and services at 27%. So the total personnel cost here, $10.5 million or 33%. Again, we are a service organization. We don't make products. We don't buy materials and so forth. So a lot of that you can see is going to be in personnel costs. And then again, on the flip side, how we compare with other agencies. This is public safety that we're comparing. So the city of American Canyon here spends approximately 33% on its police and services. You can see Napa 31%, Martinez 40%, Yountville, probably not a lot of crime there, right? 11%, Sassoon 19%, St. Helena 20%, and Calistoga 18%. So compared to the larger agencies like Martinez at 40% and Napa at 31%, we're kind of right in line there with the other agencies in terms of the percentage of our budget for police services. So what does that look like at the end of the day? In fiscal year, sorry, this is a typo, this should be 23-24. We had $10.5 million in total fund balance. There's no surplus and there's no deficit, so we're going to remain at $10.5 million. What we're doing also is that we're increasing our general fund contingency reserve to $7.9 million, 25% of general fund expenditures, and that is our target. That's where we want to be. This is our break glass in case of emergency. Something happens, we have $8 million approximately to get us through. This is a forecast. We looked at our current fiscal year 24-25. Now I'm projecting out here the next 5 years. So I have fiscal year 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. You can see that our revenues continue to outpace our expenditures until fiscal year 28. This is assuming several things. This is assuming property tax continues to grow based on the entitlements we have in place now. I'm not assuming that a certain development may come to fruition or not. So the only thing I have that's solid ground is what's entitled, they have determined that they're going to build. So I'm not assuming, what ifs and so forth. So really, it's what we have now. This also includes the police contract. So the police contract is also embedded in here. What Chief Greenberg presented last council meeting, this is included in here. So this includes those additions of the few officers and CSOs and SROs in there as well. Sorry, CSOs. The next slide, this is a lot of numbers, but this is how we would determine the previous slide. And what I wanted to highlight here is that property tax continues to grow. So we're seeing in this fiscal year, we have $12.4 million, but it continues to grow to 15 to 15.8. What's included in there is the current housing at Watson Ranch. What's included is going to be the hotels, the Watson Ranch Hotel, the second Hampton Inn Hotel, and it also going to include the construction that I already see sticks coming out the ground behind us here at Oat Hill. So that also includes that. Giovannoni Warehouse is included in here. So what I know and what I feel comfortable putting in here is what's in there, not, for example, Paoli Lane annexation or anything like that. That's not, I'm not comfortable enough putting that in there yet. Sales tax, you can see our sales tax is $3.8 million, but we're dipping. We're dipping again because we're going to experience a full year's loss of that warehouse. But we're going to slowly start rebounding. We're going to start slowly rebounding, and then we're going to start kind of ramping up a little bit here in 28, 29. That's assuming, again, there's an amphitheater in place, there's beer and wine sales, there's food sales. That's all taxable sales. That's something that I'm incorporating here in the budget or in the forecast. Why we dip down? from, or why we go down in this deficit here, $323,000 in fiscal year 30, is because as we look at transfers in from others, we're getting $1,900,930, and then we're dropping to $299. What that is that we bring in a transfer from Measure A for storm drain streets. That measure has sunset. We no longer get any money. What we're doing is we're drawing down on fund balance. That fund balance will be wiped out by fiscal year 28, 29. Hence, that's why we completely draw that down, and now the general fund is fully responsible for that. So looking forward here on the general fund, there's a lot. We know so this is a big caution sign. Inflation continues to be rampant, and what economists like to call sticky inflation, meaning it's just sticking around, it's not going away. A lot of people said it was, a lot of the Treasury Secretary and so forth said is transitionary, it's gonna go away. It didn't, it's stuck around for a while and it's still out there. High interest rates. You saw that we're earning a good amount of interest return on our investments, but it slows down a housing market. When you have 7, 8, 9% interest rates on a 30-year mortgage, there's less demand. People get priced out of the market. Our average house here, our medium house price here in American Canyon is $680,000. You add an 8, 9% mortgage on top of that, even with 20% down, you're north of $5,000 on a mortgage. So high interest rates. We have continuing to build homes and housing, and we're still the most affordable city in the county. So we have pros and cons, but again, high interest rates are hurting sales. Shift in consumer behavior. Inflation is hurting consumers' pocketbooks. There's less money for discretionary spending. There's less money for travel. They have to spend more money on food, on groceries, on necessities, on PG&E bills, on water bills. So, they're not spending that extra money traveling here in our hotels or so forth. So, what that results in is, less property tax, less sales tax, and less TOT. Property tax revenues. That's a good piece for us because we continue to build. They continue to come on the tax roll, and we continue to get more revenue. So that is a bright spot. Again, the consumer is getting maxed out with consumer debt, high interest rates, putting it on their credit cards. Eventually, something's got to give, and we just got to continue to watch that in terms of sales tax revenue and travel. Again, building activity in the city helps us. Building activity with new construction, permitting fees, more residents, more folks to shop in town, amphitheater in place, hotels, an entertainment destination. That all helps us, which also brings in the sales tax revenue. One bright spot in the economy, this is overall, is that unemployment still continues to be low. In Napa County, it hovers around 4%. In Solano County, about 5%. There are a lot of reports that saying there's still a lot more jobs out there than people willing to fill them. So that's a good thing. As long as people are employed, they keep spending, they keep driving that economy. So it's just a lot of things here. Looking forward, it's caution. Losing that sales tax revenue is big for us. It was a totally different story when I stood here a year ago. We were happy. We got all this money. We got all this back money. We put some money aside into the repair and replacement ISFs. So we didn't spend it all. So again, we were very fiscally responsible. We have that money still sitting in certain buckets. But again, now we have to look forward to life without that, without those funds. So I wanted to quickly show council and the public where we have allocated the ARPA funds. So we received $4.9 million. You can see all the allocations that we've already attributed to those funds. The ones highlighted in bold are the ones that we have finished. So we have finished Elliott Drive, the Class 2 bike lanes and crosswalks, and the skate park relocation. Council just recently approved earlier tonight the allocation of the final $215,000 from ARPA funds into the courtyard relocation. So we have $4.9 million total allocated. So with that, when are these projects going to get off? Well, I talked to Director Smitty's, and she gave me permission to share this information because you may hold her to it. Benton Way construction, $1.8 million, is going to start in June and it's going to be substantially complete by August. $1.1 million Melvin Road construction begins in August as well after the completion of Benton Way. $1.9 million Knightsbridge project construction begins August. And then Rancho Del Mar is the big one, $6.3 million project. That's going to begin in October of 2024. And then the Courtyard relocation, we're already off and running with that. So that's going to be, our goal is to be completely done with that Courtyard project by December of 2024. So I'm just a messenger if they don't get completed. This is the money that we've put into the repair and replacement. So again, we had that windfall. So we didn't have that sales tax money from this warehouse. Our consultant found it. We got 2 years worth of back sales tax revenue. A lot of that money was put into these repair and renovation ISFs. So we started out with $5,037,000. At the beginning of this next fiscal year in July, we're going to be at $4.8 million. So recently completed the adult center flooring. That was $50,000. We also completed the irrigation controllers throughout all our city parks, $152,000. Upcoming this fiscal year in '25, Northampton shade canopy and restroom, Com Park 1 improvements, and the Veterans Park playground. This is going to be all included in the CIP, the Capital Improvement Program, which will be brought forth to council next council meeting on June 4th. Director Smitty's will go through more of the detail on the projects that we're undertaking in the next fiscal year. But this is just what the repair and replacement funds are going to pay for in fiscal year '25. I know that was a lot, but that concludes the general fund portion. I'll go through the other special revenue funds, which will go a little bit quicker, but I'll pause here and see if council has any questions.
Pause, council, questions?
Sure. I have a few. On the forecasting, the sales tax forecast, we're looking 5 years down the road when the amphitheater and all that ramps in. But part of the development agreement says that we'll share half of the sales tax and TOT back to the developers. So are we essentially discounting that 50%? Okay, good. Well, yeah. So, okay, good. All right, I appreciate that. On the property tax is usually good. Are we worried that much about the VLF thing and the basic aid with the school district and all that good stuff, or are we just saying it? We don't know for sure. And
yeah, I can answer that, Councilmember Joseph. At the moment, we're not including that as a part of our forecast. You can see that line item. It's the second one there in lieu of VLF. So. There is the potential for that to go away. We're optimistic we're going to get that changed in the revenue and tax code so that doesn't become a problem, but the magnitude of the problem is pretty stark as you see.
Might be some more information tomorrow. They're having a State of the Napa Unified School District at the high school, so I expect we'll hear something about their projections.
And when Bob Minahan explained the whole process, which I understood most of, the good news, I think, is San Mateo has never been cheated out of their funds, and so it's likely one way or another we'll get our money. So I would agree. I don't think it's worth pulling out and sweating that right now. One of the things that we heard from the employee survey was custodial support. Did we plug in some money in this budget somewhere to upgrade that a little?
Yeah. We're actually going out for an RFP this fiscal year, in the current fiscal year 24, and we do have it plugged in. We actually increased it because I think we have, I think in our opinion, that is relatively low in terms of cost. So we did up it up this fiscal year. There's still money, and then next fiscal year we upped it, yes.
That's good. Then on staffing, I am excited that we're adding seasonal help. I appreciate staff responding to some of the concerns we raised at the preview, for lack of a better term. So I'm happy there. On the management analyst position, as I was talking to the city manager, I think there are some things, even though the general fund is only paying 20% of it, there are things the analysts can be doing that we're currently paying a consultant to do. And so there may be some net savings even if it doesn't accrue to the general fund. And I think it's worth pointing that out, or at least that's part of why I think it's a compelling argument. So those savings I hope will happen. The last thing, so far everything in here is just what I'd like to see. All that's left is my ongoing soapbox of a capital set aside. And what I'd like to suggest is we start that annual allocation at $250,000 based on, I think it's probably more, but I'm pretty sure it's not less. And because the budget is put together and I don't want you to go back and try to find $250,000, I would like to suggest that it come from the unassigned reserves, which are a little over $1 million. And the idea is to get in the habit of setting aside at least $250,000. And because of the timing, to just take it out of those undesignated reserves, but ultimately integrate it into the budget building process. And I think if we do that, we'll start, we'll get in the habit of having a revenue stream to address streets, parks, facilities, so that when they are starting to wear out, you can begin to plan when you need to do these various projects and have some expectation that the money will be there. And I just think that would be a great way of getting into this exercise of setting funds aside and with the least amount of disruption in the whole budgeting process. So that is one thing that I would like to add as a motion. Well, I don't know if we're adopting this or just right now we're just getting a review. So I would like to ask if my colleagues would go for adding that as a add-on to the budget process as a good faith first step down payment on the ongoing capital set-aside project, which has been there as long as I've been. So
Yes, it has.
I'll say this, that was my plan 6 months ago, before we got notified by our taxpayer. So yes, I had a plan, but on a bright note, I'll say this, let me get back to the, where's my, here, so in fiscal year 24, here, this is $288,000. This is the anticipated surplus that we're projecting right now in this fiscal year that we're currently in that ends June 30th. The bright spot is we're far outpacing that. This surplus is going to look more like $1 million. Wow. And the reason is several factors. One is we have vacancies. Those vacancies that I had mentioned, those are not being charged. They're vacant. We're not paying those salaries and benefits. And two, again, our supplies and materials budgets are running lower than normal. So $250,000 from moving into the undesignated is probably not an issue there. Yeah.
Well, that's even better because
yeah. So, just don't ask for 500,000.
No, good enough. I'm willing to work with you. Yeah, I think starting with that as a transfer and whether it goes into park, streets, or whatever, I defer to staff to figure out where's the right bucket, as long as it goes into one of those buckets, so that on an ongoing basis we'll have some money to fix parks and streets and so on.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well, I think further discussion on that would certainly need to be had so we all have a better understanding of what that's all about.
Yeah, I like the idea. We have one more budget meeting before this. I would love to see a clearer explanation of that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Before we adopt this?
Yep, June 4th, we'll
June
bring
4th,
it for
yeah.
adoption. Yep.
Yeah.
So we'll incorporate that recommendation in there.
Like to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Then another segment of
Yeah, so we'll go into the other
special
funds,
revenue.
special revenue funds. These are funds that are monies that we receive for a special purpose: gas tax, lighting and landscape assessment district, grants that we receive from the federal government or from the state government, they can only be used for a certain purpose. So we can't, for example, fund more police officers or build certain, new facilities or so forth. These are special revenue funds that are dedicated for a specific purpose. You can see in the top right corner, we're receiving $17.3 million in revenues and $20 million in expenditures. The fund balance in these special revenue funds right now is $15.2 million, and this is projected to be at the end of fiscal year 25. So what we're getting here in revenues, we're getting federal grants of $11.1 million. That includes ARPA, that includes the EDA grant for Green Island Road, $1 million for OBAG, $873,000 for home rehab loans that are managed by the city of Napa. This is my third budget that I've been involved here because I got on the tail end of finishing the old one and then the 24 and now the 25. We've been moving these federal grants over and over, so we've been just carrying over because Green Island Road hasn't quite kicked off completely. And these are reimbursable grants, meaning we spend the money and then we ask for the money in return. So as a projection, we have those in this fiscal year, which more than likely, I think this year, they're finally going to request those funds. Measure T, the county-wide measure, $1.8 million in revenues, gas tax, 1.1. Lighting, landscape, and assessment district assessments, that was what council approved earlier today, $722,000 for those three assessment districts. Now, the expenses of these special revenue funds are primarily expended through the capital improvement project or program. So Green Island Road, $12.7 million. Rancho is using $3.8 million in ARPA money and is also using $2.4 million in EF, which is the enterprise funds, is using a little bit of water and a little bit of wastewater. $1.4 million ARPA into Benton Way, and then $1.2 million ARPA money into Knightsbridge. And then LLAD projects that we have are the Silver Oak restroom. The Main Street park design is included in there for $30,000, and then the improvements and so forth are scheduled in fiscal year 26. Capital improvement funds. So capital improvement funds are really supposed to only be an in and an out. So this is what manages the whole capital improvement. There are some funds in here like developer impact fees, civic impact fees, traffic impact fee, park impact fees that we don't necessarily use. We usually sometimes build those up, and then when we have a big project, we draw down on those funds. So those continue to build that fund balance. And the fund balance in those capital improvement funds is $14.8 million. But again, the major revenues are going to be the impact fees, $12.2 million from impact fees. Those are the impact fees that are paid for by developers that are for the impact to the community. So there's more wear and tear on streets, there's more population using parks, civic facilities, and so forth. They pay a portion in order to expand the capacity of amenities and services that are needed. Transfers in, we're getting into these capital improvement funds, $30.2 million, mainly from special revenue funds, enterprise funds, and impact fees. So the enterprise funds come into play here because, for example, Rancho is not only going to be a streets project, but it's also going to be replacing the main lines for water and sewer. So it sits in the traffic CIP, but it's funded in part by enterprise funds. Debt service funds, we have, again, City Hall debt on this building. That's $469,000. And then we also have our NG, which is our citywide energy efficiency program. That's a $38,000 general fund contribution to the debt service. Water enterprise funds, you can see our water enterprise funds have revenues of $16.3 million and expenditures of $16.3-ish million. So pretty well balanced there. Water operations is the heart of the water enterprise funds, revenues of $10.5 million, expenses of $14.8 million. Looks like a big deficit operationally, but we're transferring out to the CIP $2.7 million. Again, water operations is going to pay for a portion of that Knightsbridge, Rancho, and also over in Green Island Road for a water main on Hannah Drive. So we're pulling out $2.7 million from these water operations funds into the CIP for water infrastructure projects. As you may recall, during our rate study, we had reserves at a certain level. So we have a $20 million fund balance here. Now, this is net of investment in capital assets. So really, this is money that we have readily available. We're not going to sell a portion of our water treatment plant in order to pay our employees. That doesn't make sense. This is cash and investments that we readily have available. So I wanted to distinguish that. If you look at our report, it has a net position, which shows the value of our capital assets minus depreciation plus the available funds. That is our net position. That's a little inflated, again, because we're not going to sell vehicles and infrastructure in order to pay for our operations. This is money that's available for our operations, $20 million. Back to the rate study. The rate study showed that we would be decreasing our fund balance to a minimum target level. The minimum target level for the water enterprise funds is $4 million. The water operations fund has a fund balance of $14 million. So in the rate study, we had targeted that $14 million to come down to $4 million. $4 million represents 90 days of cash reserves and approximately $2 million in capital reserve, meaning if a water main breaks or something, we have that available. So we're going to systematically bring down that fund balance from $14 million to $4 million, which is the minimum. That helped us in several ways. One, we didn't need to increase rates as much as we would have otherwise if we didn't draw down these fund balances.
Good having that reserve. Andrew Road, they just finished the sewer line.
Yep.
That broke, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
So again, we're going to also transfer intra-fund transfers, which is transferring from water operations to water CIP. That is an intra-fund. We're going to transfer money into that for other projects. There's going to be a shop, a maintenance shop that's going to be built, and then $350,000 for water media filter replacements. As we look at the water CIP, again, like I mentioned with the other capital improvement funds, in and out, again, it's supposed to be with the water CIP. $925,000 comes in, $925,000 goes out. They're passed through for water-related projects that I had mentioned. Water capacity fund, these are connection fees, capacity fees that developers pay when they want to tap into the system. They have to pay for expanded capacity to the system. We're projecting $4.7 million in revenues, up from $1.3 million in fiscal year '24. Again, that's a result of the construction and building activity that you see in town. Those developers are paying those capacity fees. Contrary to some folks say, well, what are developers paying? They're creating more wear and tear in our system and so forth. Well, they're paying into the system by impact fees, by these capacity fees to expand the system. If a pump needs to be upgraded, they'll do it. If the water treatment plant needs to be upgraded, this is what that funding is for. Wastewater enterprise funds, revenues of $11 million, expenditures of $14 million. A fund balance sitting in that readily available for operations is $7.9 million. Like the water fund, we're drawing down on reserves again to those minimum levels. The minimum level for the wastewater enterprise funds is $3 million. Again, 90 days of cash on hand for operations and $1 million for capital reserve. $5.3 million in revenues, $9.4 million in expenses, a CIP transfer of $1.6 million, and an intra-fund transfer of $1.3. So we're transferring out $2.9 million for CIP projects. So again, these fund balances that we have in the water operations, in the impact fees, in the repair and replacement plans, these are monies you'll see next council meeting. There's a $31 million CIP program next fiscal year. So a lot of this money is being put to work. We're going to start seeing a lot of this construction activity in town. So when you're driving out there, be patient. The roads are going to be all torn up. Wastewater CIP fund, 3.1 million. Again, these are some of the projects. $1.8 million for Sewer Station 4 sewer rehab, $653,000 for an Andrew Road repair, $500,000 for SCADA, $100,000 for Cartagena manhole repair. Wastewater capacity fee fund, revenues of 2.5 million. Again, these are developers paying these capacity fees, up from 748,000 in fiscal year 24, and we're transferring out $1.8 million. $1.8 million in that capacity fund is to fund that Sewer Station 4. Recycled water fund. This is the baby enterprise fund. It's relatively new. Revenues of only 345,000, expenditures of 1.2 million. This fund is not going to be really self-sufficient until we get more customers online. As more building activity comes online and we get more customers, we have more ratepayers that are going to pay into this fund. So it's going to be a while. We've implemented some measures like there's loans outstanding from the sewer and water enterprise funds to the recycle. In order to build this fund, we've kind of refinanced those loans, so to speak, to a 1% interest rate, which was the intention of the original loans when LAIF was paying, a quarter of 1%. Now it's 5%, so it didn't make sense. So we're doing some measures in here, but it's going to take a while. It's currently experiencing annual deficits. The good thing is we recently completed a rate study, and the new rates become effective January 1st, 2025. That's going to help, but again, it's going to take a while for this fund to be self-sufficient. And then we'll enter the matrix here for a minute. These are the internal service funds, and internal service funds are IT, fleet, building, and legal. So these are funds that provide service to other departments in the city. That's why they're called internal service. We have revenues of $4.4 million and expenses of $4.9 million. We have a fund balance right there of $4.1 million. Now, also in the internal service funds are those repair and replacement funds. That money that we put in there, they're in here. The $4.1 million is our projected fund balance at the end of fiscal year 25. So what we have here is we have the fleet enterprise. We're going to have parks and renovation projects of $850,000 in fiscal year 25. Majority of those funds are coming out of those park repair and replacement fund. That money that we put in there. $100,000. This building here is leaky and needs a replacement, so we're estimating about $100,000. That's coming from the building internal service fund. And then increases in IT services and fleet leasing. Again, as I mentioned, we now lease 37 vehicles. We have a fleet of approximately 63 vehicles. We're leasing 37 vehicles. 13 of them are hybrids. So we have hybrid vehicles. I don't know if we have a plug-in quite yet. Again, we had issues with supplies and the cost of these vehicles. Again, as we mentioned in earlier discussions, Ford and GM were only giving you $90,000 pickup trucks fully loaded. That's all they had. So we felt it didn't make sense to go down that route for getting it all muddy and so forth. So, but it's costing us more, so we're increasing the budget for the fleet leasing because we're having more vehicles come online. And again, we have a lot of IT projects that are happening where we have that OpenGov procurement software that we just implemented. We have a permitting software for community development that we're going to implement in fiscal year 25. So we're doing a lot of technological upgrades that provide efficiency to our staff, help them do a better job and more efficient, and systems that actually now talk to each other instead of double entering. So that is important. Unfortunately, again, it costs money to upgrade these systems, and that's what we're including. So with that concludes my presentation, and I'll take any questions.
Questions from council?
Well, one quick one. On fleet leasing, that should eventually level out because as they're all leased, suddenly that revenue or that expenditure will kind of stabilize. So
It'll stabilize as we get every vehicle on the leasing program, and the prices don't increase like they have been. Yeah.
But like I said, at least then you'll have new equipment with all the latest technology and efficiencies and so on. So that's just a transitional expense if you think of it. Thank you.
I think that would save us a lot in maintenance of the vehicles.
Yeah, it'll save us a lot in maintenance. The new vehicles also have a lot of safety features. A lot of the old vehicles that we have don't have backup cameras, blind spot monitors, and so forth. So all these new vehicles help our staff out there as well be safe and so forth. Yeah.
Very good. Any other questions? Council ready for public comment?
Yes, sir.
Public comment is open on this matter.
I have no cards and no hands raised online.
Do we have a Jerry Maguire present? Show me the money. Great presentation, though. Thank you.
Oh.
I like the details.
I just want to say again that it's great to listen to Juan. I mean, he does such a great presentation, and it's even more amazing to watch Mark, because each time is fewer and fewer questions. So you're doing an outstanding job. I hope part of the salary increases is going to Juan.
I'll give you your cut later.
No, you're right. Juan, you're able to present numbers that are, I mean, I enjoy them in whatever form you give them, but I can appreciate how this is a very good, easy presentation.
Well,
So-
I think the visual presentation really,
Yeah.
it's easy to easy to understand.
And as I've always said, the two exciting things for me is budget and public works, and I've had nothing but fun tonight.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Let's see what our action on this is tonight is just,
No action, Mayor. It's just
receive and file at
review and
this point.
comment.
Yeah, we're going to have June 4th, we will have the final on our budget.
Correct, Mayor.
Right, okay.
Thank you
very
Juan.
much.
Great job.
Okay, moving on to management staff oral reports.
Director Akita is going to come up and talk about Memorial Day, and when she's done, I'm going to talk about that shiny little thing sitting in front of the mayor.
Thank you, Jason. I just have a couple updates. First, on May 22nd, Donaldson Way Elementary School is going to be hosting a booster event for children 5 to 11 years of age from 1:30 to 3:30. To my understanding, if you bring in a car seat, you'll get a new car seat. So it's a really great program. On May 27th is our Memorial Day ceremony at the Veterans Memorial Park at 11 a.m. Please don't miss it. It's going to be a beautiful celebration or event for that day. Also, in addition, our city offices are going to be closed on that Monday. And then I also just wanted to add, if you have not heard, our pool heater is finally fixed.
Yay.
It's been replaced, and our pool reopened on Monday, and we brought back all of our beloved programs like water exercise and lap swim, and our spring swim lessons. Thank you.
Well, we have,
Yes, Mayor, I'll go ahead
Here.
and mention that. Thank you, Ellie. That piece of hardware in front of you, Mayor, is an award we received from the California Public Information Officers Association. Communications Manager Jen Kanzabak, Director Akita, and myself were at the conference last week to receive that award. Appreciate our consultant, Trip Epi Smith, helping out. The award was for Activity Guide for Park and Recreation, which we went a little retro and went back to a printed material to mail to our community members. It was very well done, so well done, in fact, that it received that award. So there are about 400 nominations for awards this year statewide, and so there were a number of awards given out, but the 400 were submitted. We received one, and very proud of the team, Jen, Ali, Tripepi, all of the folks, the staff who worked on it, and very proud of the document that hopefully the community is reviewing and sending their family members up for classes that are available right now. So I'm very excited, so thank you.
well, way to go, bravo, congratulations. It just speaks to great work. Anything else? That's it? Okay. Moving on to mayor council comments and committee reports. Councilmember Joseph, anything you'd like to comment on?
Well, we did have our Climate Action Committee meeting last Friday.
Yeah.
Nothing, well, we're starting to move more into updates. So we got an update on our regional climate action and adaptation plan and updates on our 24-hour greenhouse gas monitoring project and things like that. But no new excitement, other than two things. We really do need to agendize adding an alternate to the Climate Action Committee. We're the only jurisdiction that doesn't have an alternate, and although the mayor and I are reliable types, it might help just to put that on the future agenda. And then we do need to talk about the foodware ordinance and the electric reach, those two ordinances. And maybe I'll just work with the staff as far as, at some point we need, as a council, we need to comment on whether we want to do it or how we want to tweak it.
Yeah. On the foodware, Calistoga representative was, they seem to be very happy with the results they're getting on it. So they had well, I can't remember what the charge was. I think it was a quarter for something like that. They expect a lot of pushback on it, and no, people seem to like it. So, all right. Well, good news to hear. Well, I'll add when I get to my comments. Councilmember Washington?
No, sir. Nothing to add.
Councilmember Orr?
I do not.
Okay. I did comment on the Climate Action Committee. They had a great presentation on looking for placement of EV chargings, and they're trying to do more of an equitable look at communities and lower income. So they had mapped this huge area in Oakland on it. And it's a great idea to have that. But I think, you know, if you're looking at the apartment housing, low-income housing, can that family afford an electric vehicle? Where do they get it? You know, it says, well, prices are going to come down, maybe $30,000. Well, there really wasn't any real analysis on the consumer on the other end of it. But it's an idea to work with. As it moves forward, there's opportunity to put in EV charging in areas where we don't have it now. At some point in time, that will be very common. So at that part of the plan, I liked a lot. Green Island Road Industrial District had a meeting there at the Redwood Credit Union, the new building over here in near the airport. Huge meeting room that's impressive. But the encouraging thing for me is PG&E representative was there, and they're starting to work on Green Island Road. Great. We've been waiting for that how many years now? But patience, it gets you everywhere, I guess. Napa Valley Waste Management Authority, again, it comes up with the transfer station. They need some improvements there, so that floor is about worn out, so they need to do some work there. Fortunately, the budget's in very good shape to handle that. Flood control, and there's a lot of that was on properties on the area they're trying to improve along the Napa River, so it's getting the ability to acquire rights of way to build flood walls. American Canyon Fire Protection District, wow, that was an incredible evening or day over there with the it was the Advanced Life Support anniversary, 10 years. We've had that operation going on. And the amount of response, and I can't begin to imagine the number of lives saved simply because we have that capacity in American Canyon to, and response time is a matter of a few minutes. You know, just, I know, a very moving story from, I think it was one of your neighbors.
Yeah.
Who was there?
Joel Thompson and his wife, Jeanette Thompson.
Yeah. Basically had a heart attack, and people were there to be able to start CPR, and our trained staff come by from the fire district, and he's in an ambulance and on his way to the hospital, and he survived. That's a great story to have. What else we got here? Oh, Benton Way. Got a hold of the principal of the middle school and the principal of the Donaldson Way. Just gave them heads up. We got 6 weeks to get this thing done. So, all right, they're accepting of that. Just as, you know, 4th of July in the middle of all that. But, you know, I think the keeping them informed is what impacts them. I think one of the things to look at First day of school, I'm down there for seeing how the traffic's moving. My conversations with the principal is always about that community school interface. A lot of it is kids coming in and out and cars moving. And I think they're pleased with the plans going forward on it. It's going to help them out a lot. And I'm always very grateful that school day starts in the middle of the week on a Wednesday. And then you have those 3 days where it's very crazy, and I don't know who's crying more, the kindergartner or the mom and dad, but first day of school is always very stressful. And then you have the weekend to recover, and now you start the school week on a regular Monday through Friday, and things begin to settle down. So it's a good process, but I look forward to that being done. I know much of Rio Del Mar, I think, was built in the 1950s, and I think the water and wastewater lines in there probably date from that era. So that's going to be good to change what's underground before we pave the surface of the street. Yeah. And that concludes my report. All right, so future agenda items of note, we have that. Anything?
I have one. We talked about development standards, and I noticed we don't have a joint session with the Planning Commission scheduled. So what I'd like to do is two things: request that we schedule a joint session with the Planning Commission, and that the topic at least be some discussion about design standards and what we can do to, you know, improve that and still be consistent with HCD.
Okay.
So that would be my request.
Yeah, and I would second that. Mostly focused on the standards, but if we could do it with the Planning Commission, it's probably where a lot of this comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just seems like I said, I think they need to hear from us and vice versa so that we're all kind of on the same page.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good idea, yeah. Need anything formal on that, Mr. Hawley? No, okay, all right. Anything further? Future agenda items?
No, sir.
Okay, well, council colleagues, we have concluded our business for the evening. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Good night, American Canyon.